and the special emergency meeting of October 29th.
I will make a motion to approve both meetings.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. So motion has been made by Susan, seconded by George. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hear none. Chair votes aye as well. All right. So next, we're going to go into the compliance hearings. Each permit holder will have the opportunity to speak. The board may ask questions and then deliberate before determining any further action. So would we like Kevin? I don't know where anybody is.
Is he here?
Oh, Ron, sorry. To come up, and we're going to start with the Tobacconist, 1875 Main Street. And then I'll have you state your name and your address, please.
My name is Neetal. I'm located on 1875 Main Street. Name is Neetal Shah.
Thank you. Ron, you can start if you'd like.
Hi, Ron Beauregard, Health Department here in Tewksbury, Tobacco Control. This is just a follow-up, a show cause hearing, of course. There was an error made and on, was it April 9th? Sorry, October 10th?
No, April 9th.
April 9th. April 9th, and fines were issued for that day for having flavored tobacco product and not having documentation that's required by 105 CMR 665. There's been a bit of a delay. I think Mr. Shaw will be able to provide an explanation and make a remedy before the end of the
No, since the violation and the sanction from the Department of Revenue, we were shut down for almost 3 months. And since then, we had not recovered the business to even 20% of the previous business. The business has gone down by like 80% right now. Neither is the weather helping. That's why there was a delay in making the payment to the town. We are trying level best, but it's very hard to survive right now.
Have any payments been made?
No. If the town can give me some installment, making few installment, then I would be more than.
Shannon, do you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah, if I may, when money is owed to the town, before you can get issued another permit, you have to pay that fee.
I know.
So your permit expires December 31st. So that's a little bit over a month.
Yeah. Is there any leeway in that it can be done something? I can appeal to the board.
The tricky part is that payment is issued by the state, and the
Okay.
board doesn't have any leeway to make any changes to the money that's due. I will say this has been since April, and there hasn't been any payments since.
I know.
And the requirement to pay before a permit is issued is not my department. That is handled by the treasurers. So the conversation is a bigger conversation than the board or myself can grant you tonight.
Okay.
To the chair,
Yeah,
could I have the floor for a second?
sure.
Mr. Shaw, I want to tell you, and you knew this because you were at the meeting, I'm not happy because it's a $7,000 fine, but I'm not a state representative, nor am I in charge of the Department of Treasury, so we really, our hands are tied. I'd like to tell
I
you that.
understand.
And all I can say is God bless you and do the best you can do.
I'll try to make arrangement by the end of this year. That's the only promise I can make. Or else I'll have to close the business.
Yeah, you wanted to say something? Okay.
No, I mean, it's, unfortunately, because of that situation, that if you could make the payment by the end of the year, I think their hands are tied in terms of allowing you to stay
Right.
open. So it's a tough
I
situation
know.
where you don't have any income coming in to
Yeah.
help make a payment for that. It makes it more difficult. So if there's any way,
I know.
This unfortunately is out of our jurisdiction because it is a state,
Okay.
and so when we had originally had you in, we had stated like the payments and stuff, and I get, difficulty in things. It's just that we're unable to say anything different than the state at this moment for that, so,
I can understand that thing.
yeah,
I'll try to make some arrangement by the end of this year. That's
okay,
one promise I can make.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, next will be Cumberland Farms, 270 Main Street. And then I'll just have you say, state your name and your address, please.
Patricia Fredericks, 270 Main Street.
Thank you. And then, Ron, you can go ahead.
I think the pen is out of ink, I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, it's working.
Is it working?
Yeah.
These two cases here, including Cumberland Farms, is really stipulation of facts. Fine has been paid, and based on your local regulations, just an opportunity right now for Cumberland Farms to provide an explanation for what they'll do to try to prevent a sale in the
Great.
future.
We are actually IDing everybody and scanning it, using it at the register, scanning the identifications at the register.
Okay.
What do we put right here?
Any questions or comments from the board?
My question is, you said you scan, you got the equipment to scan.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
And so when you're scanning it, they can't purchase anything until that scan goes through?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you scan at the register when you have the age restricted. And it will tell you if it's a minor, if it's underage, and it won't let the transaction go through.
Perfect.
Okay. And has,
I only have one question,
sure,
and the director will probably answer it.
your mic is off.
Sorry. I only have one question. Just wondering from the director if there's been any other incident in the last 3 years with this facility? Because I'm just asking because we're supposed to know that when anybody comes
There
before
isn't,
us.
in the last 3 years, no.
Okay.
Not from the date of that time.
Thank you very much.
Great. And then has everybody that works there, are they all now informed and trained
Yes.
on that? Perfect.
We actually are taking the restricted age, the course every 90 days for a year
Okay,
through Cumberland.
great. Well, perfect. I guess that's it. Do you have any questions? All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then next will be Galloway's, 1079 Main Street. And if you could just state your name and your address, please.
Hi guys, my name is Mr. Sheikh Musurias. I'm owner of the Galloway's Convenience Store, and in underage, my employee they sell, and I'm really very guilty. Feel that not gonna happen again. I will try my best. I can try to the new employee. Plus, I will training very well, so it's not gonna happen again.
Okay. So you mentioned, you mentioned you had a new employee?
Yeah, I will try. I will training.
You have a new employee in training?
Training.
Okay.
Yes.
And what other things have you implemented since?
I will try to best. Never gonna happen that again.
Any questions from the board?
Should we ask our director to have somebody go to the facility and give them recommendations of what they can do? Like maybe some different signage or something?
Can do that.
Okay, all right.
I don't
Okay,
think
all right.
they can. I think
Okay.
it would be, Ron probably has already you've already probably discussed
Yes.
yes.
Okay, my only question is the same ones that I just asked before. Do you use a scanner?
Not yet, but I already talked with the vendor, and I will do in the process. Yes.
I would like to mention to you that I'm in discussions with our state representative
Okay.
to try to get a tax break for the facilities that, even though there's facilities that already have scanners, I personally don't understand why the state can tell you you have to have something and not even give you a tax break for it. So I'm looking to try to do that. And my only other question is, Ron, has there been any issues with this facility in the last 3 years?
No. What time did you purchase it?
Last 1 year,
1 year? that you
Yeah.
own this- own
You've been open for a year?
just 1 year.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Susan?
Yes, I have a question. I know you had mentioned that you're working on it and you're training them.
Yes, yes.
But it needs to be more specific.
No, I will
There
try
has
my
to-
best, ma'am.
There has to be a plan in
Yes,
place,
yes.
whether it's either the scanner or something that you come back and say, this isn't going to happen, not just because you say it,
No,
but
no,
because
no.
you have something in place that will make sure it doesn't happen,
Yes, ma'am.
which you don't have right now.
No, I will, in the process, definitely I will do it that one, because if I'm not, I'm not happy if my kids, they're going to use something like that, so I'm not going to give you anybody kids, because they're all my kids, you know. So I know it never going to happen 100%. That's positive thing.
And just, the board should know, I mean, we have a contractual arrangement with the state of Massachusetts Department of Public Health that we have to do a repeat check for anyone that has made a sale. So
Yeah.
it's an incentive, to
Yeah.
make
Yes.
certain that.
Can we ask for some type of plan of what, I know he's stating it, but like kind of like something in writing of what has been, can we ask for that as?
Yes, you could,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
We'll have to vote on that too, but any other questions from the board?
No, I would just
Okay.
make sure that you train them.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean,
I will.
if someone starts hemming and hawing about being asked to show ID, I'd be highly concerned.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would like to put a motion in front of the board to, for this, for this situation, to request that there is a plan in writing submitted to the director, to the director of the health department. Let's see,
I make that motion that
I want to
Galloway's,
put a date.
okay.
Let me just figure out the date that we're in right now and see, because I know that there's holidays and stuff, but I also don't want to take too long, but I also don't. So I would say by the 28th, let's just say so the 28th, because that's the last working business day of the month, okay? So the 28th of November, I would like to put that through.
I make a motion that we require Galloway's to submit a plan to the department director by November 26th? 28th.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion has been put forward by George, seconded by Pam. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Any opposed? I hear none. Chair votes aye as well. So just to confirm, something in writing of the plan that you're taking, the actions that you're taking, on or before, get that to the director on or before November 28th.
Yeah, I will
Okay?
try my best.
All right,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. All right, let me get myself situated. Okay, so next is new business. We have an information session for the proposed battery energy storage system, BESS facility at 7375 Hillman Street. I invite the town manager and I believe the fire chief to present, and the representatives from East Point, so whoever would like to come first. Great.
Thank you.
Yes,
Just give me a minute to get set up.
sure.
Melissa, if I may ask the people sitting in the audience, if you could put your cell phones on either mute or vibrate. Thank you.
Great.
We can't hear.
Yeah, they have to pull much closer.
Okay, yeah, so if you guys, so everyone who is speaking, even us on the members, if we can pull is this better?
Yes.
Okay, so just really have it really in front of you, and then I would ask the same for those who are speaking and presenting.
Can you hear me okay?
Can everyone hear okay?
Okay.
And before you start, I'm just going to ask that all the members, everyone that is here, to remain silent during the presentation. Try and avoid any type of commentary as much as possible. We really would appreciate that. We do have public comment after this, so please keep those comments for that time.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm here tonight. My name is John Curran. I'm the town manager. I have the fire chief, Joe Kearns, here with me as well as Deputy Paul Guttadaro and Lieutenant Smith, Peter Smith as well. And I want to thank Shannon for all her help in putting this together with us today. And I particularly want to thank the fire department for all the work they've been doing on this project. I've learned quite a bit about the level of professionalism and talent that we have in our fire department, and I think we're very fortunate, and I know I'm fortunate because it's been very helpful through this process. So with that said, I'd like to just get started. With the purpose of this presentation is to try to fill in for some deficits that I think the process that we're going through is not a local process. It's a state process, and I know myself, and I think a lot of members of the public and you are all used to being the permitting authority for projects similar to this, and so this hasn't lent itself well to public input, and there's been, I think, some dissatisfaction about the ability to participate in this process, and also some issues of trust around the information being disseminated and how it's being disseminated. So what I'd like to do is try to explain what the process is and why, also what the town has done to date during this process, and then what steps we are taking to protect the health and safety of the residents of the town, because I feel like this process hasn't lent itself well to, people don't realize the amount of work that the town has been doing to try to address these issues, because it's not a very public process that we are used to. So with that overview, I'd like to just get started. I'll start with the process itself. The process is actually controlled by the state through the Energy Facilities Siting Board, and that's dictated by Chapter 40A, Section 3, which many of you are familiar with. Chapter 40A, it's the zoning statute. But what it does is in Section 3, it talks about anything that is reasonably necessary for the convenience of or welfare of the public is governed, it can be governed by or exempted from local zoning and governed by a state agency. So in this case, energy is considered to be something that's for the greater good of the Commonwealth, and is therefore governed by the DPU and the EFSB, or Energy Facilities Siting Board. So that's what takes it out of our realm and puts it into a state realm. And so it's something that we don't see every day, but it has existed for a long time. So the process that the FSB conducts has several stages. The first one is a public hearing, which we've already had, and many of the people that are here tonight, I believe, are in the room. That was on October 9th at the Tewksbury Memorial High School. And the purpose of that public hearing was to gain input from the local community about the project and get feedback through the EFSB, the siting board. So that hearing was conducted, and then after the hearing, there's a period where you have the opportunity to petition to intervene in that process. So if you want to be a participant in that process, you need to file to do that. So the town has done that. There's several levels of participation that you can do. The highest level is the petition to intervene, and that's the level that the town has petitioned for. And you can also be a limited participant, which you'd have less things that you can do during the process, but it allows you to participate more than just speaking at a public hearing. So far what has happened is the town has petitioned as an intervening party, and it has been accepted by the EFSB. Dennis Sheehan and Maureen De Palma of Emerald Court have also petitioned, and they are also an intervening party. Greg Corbin from Emerald Court has petitioned as a limited participant in the process, so he's also involved. And then and from my conversations with Shannon and the chair, I do anticipate that the Board of Health is expecting to do a late petition, which the town would not object to, obviously, and I don't want to take words out of the petitioner's mouth, but I don't think that they would object either. So that's the landscape of people participating in the process right now. So those are the people that will be able to, participate in the hearing process that's going to start probably after the holiday. So the next stage is discovery, and in that process, the developer or utility company responds to written questions from the siting division staff and individuals or groups that have been permitted to intervene as parties, so such as the town and any other interveners. Interveners may present expert testimony if they wish to. They may also be requested to respond to discovery by the developer or utility company and the staff, and may be required to respond to discovery by other interveners. So it's kind of like a court proceeding. And the town does intend to submit questions and use experts to assist and supplement the inquiries made by the town. And obviously in areas like stormwater, noise, fire safety, and environmental concerns. So the town fully expects to participate at that level. So the evidentiary hearings is the next phase, and that's where witnesses are questioned under oath by the siting division staff, the developer or the utility company, and interveners in the process that was, and that process resembles a court hearing. And then from there, after they've received all that testimony and conducted all those hearings, their people are allowed to submit briefs. It's like a regular court case. The developer and the interveners, being the town and anyone else in the process, can submit briefs about whether they are in favor or opposed to the project. Limited participants can also provide written arguments as well. So after those briefs are submitted, there's a process where they issue a decision or order, and under the EFSB jurisdiction, the siting division staff issues a tentative decision approving or rejecting the project, and the parties receive the tentative decision prior to the scheduled siting board meeting for review and comment. And after the comment period, so there'll be a comment period after the decision is released, and then after that comment period, the siting board meets in public to vote on whether to accept the tentative decision. So the final decision reflects any changes made at the siting board meeting. And my understanding is, and don't hold me to this because these things usually get drawn out much longer, but my understanding is this process is supposed to go out to the next spring in 2026. But usually a lot of these things end up going a little longer, but I would expect it to be sometime in the middle of next year that the process would be completed. So what is the town's role in this process? The town, we're trying to articulate today, is the town is not the permitting authority, so we don't have that luxury of being the permitting authority. So the town consequently will participate as an intervening party and represent the interests of the town in that role, in that capacity. The town will use a host community agreement tool to gain conditions and concessions that will be incorporated into the permit process. Now, the reason that the town is using that tool is because we don't have the power to make the decision to vote this in or vote this down. We just know that it's possible that it could be approved. So we want to make sure that we incorporate all the conditions and safety measures that we want into the agreement in case it is passed. So if we took a purely adversarial role against this project, we would be denying the town the opportunity to try to impose conditions on the permit if it is approved. A host community agreement is something that would probably be incorporated into the final decision if it was passed, and it would be basically conditions on the approval of the project. Some of you who are familiar with 40Bs and the way those things work, it's a similar type of thing. If you have a blanket opposition to it, you don't have an opportunity to impose conditions on something. So that's the position that the town is in, and it makes the most sense for us to proceed in that fashion to protect the interests of the town and the safety and health of its residents. So to do that, the town will continue to solicit input from the fire department, the police department, for both of those for safety, for public safety. Engineering, they're currently reviewing the stormwater the report that was submitted. And I have to imagine that many of these things will be updated because this is a long process. So, we obviously will submit comments on the stormwater plan that's out there now, but I fully expect that some of these things will change over time. The Board of Health Department, obviously, would be consulting with Shannon and you, the board, about issues around health and noise, environmental concerns, and things of that nature. And obviously, we've been inundated with public comments and letters that we've taken into account. And what is frustrating for us is many of these concerns that have been raised are concerns that we are addressing. It's just not being seen in the public forum. So that's one of the reasons we're here tonight, is to try to convey that we are working on all these issues and all these concerns. So in addition to our own professional resources, we'll also be hiring fire safety consultants. We're looking at a couple of them now that would help us, that have worked with this technology intimately on a regular basis. I feel like we've all learned quite a bit about this technology over the last 4 or 5 months because, in trying to work on this thing. So there is a lot to learn, but there are other people that have been working on it a lot longer than we have. So we'll be engaging their services to help us to make sure that we address all the concerns that come along with this proposal. Also, we've also engaged legal counsel to help us because obviously this is a different process than we're used to, and we want our legal interest protected and making sure that we go through this process in a way that is in the best interest of the town. We've also engaged property assessors to look at the value of a project like this, as it's very unique. And it has a very unique way of valuing it, so we want to make sure that whatever the value is something that, the town is getting a fair tax value for that property. And then also noise. There is a noise study that was done. I fully would anticipate there'll probably be another one done in the future, but we will peer review that as well to make sure that all of those issues are addressed if the project is approved. And then what has the town done to date with this project? So it goes back to February, at least from my time frame here is February 28th. The town, my office, I met with East Point Energy in preparation for they were coming before the board on March 4th, a few days later. So they came and introduced themselves and told us about the project, and then they made the same presentation to the board on March 4th. And I believe there was, there was not as many people there as there were as at the next meeting, but they also, around the same time, on March 18th, they had an open house for people that live in that area. And I think there were about roughly 50 people that attended that meeting. And then on April 3rd, we went out and visited, myself, the fire chief, and some of his staff, and the building commissioner, I recall, and I think the chairman of the board at the time. We went out to visit the site, standalone battery storage site in North Reading, and we wanted to see what that was and how that, what it can, it's a lot smaller than this one, but it did have similar type of units, so it was interesting to see that. We do plan on touring more of these in the future. And then that same day, we met with representatives from Emerald Court in my office at 1 o'clock. And then later on in June June 26th, we also met with the Emerald Court trustees. And both times they're obviously bringing concerns that they have as abutters to the project. And then on October 16th of this year, just recently, the Board of Health had a presentation by MAHB regarding a Mass Association of Health Boards regarding the best facilities, and at that time, I don't have to tell you, you voted to do an site assignment hearing for the best BESS proposal, and then consequently on the 29th, you rescinded that site assignment hearing, but then scheduled this meeting here today, and also voiced your intent to file as an intervening party. So that is what's been happening to date and brings us to today. And I'd like to get into a little bit, and then I'm going to hand it over to the chief and let him talk about some of the things that the fire department is working on, because ultimately I think that is the primary issue is fire safety on that site. So just to talk a little bit about the standards and regulations, and this is stuff I've learned over the last 5 or 6 months, but the NFPA standards, 855, standard for installation of stationary energy storage systems. So NFPA provides the installation, siting, spacing, fire protection, and emergency response requirements for a battery energy storage system. It is the primary code that dictates how systems must be designed and placed to minimize fire and explosion risks. So I kind of think about that. NFPA is sort of they control the site, and how the site's to be laid out and how that impacts health and safety. So when I think of NFPA, that's what I think. I think about site assignment, and I think about the site itself. But then when you think of UL 9540, energy storage systems and equipment, this is more about the technology, the safety and efficacy of the system itself, and it also involves, very, very aggressive fire testing and things of that. So UL 9540 is the system level safety certification. It evaluates an energy storage system as a whole, the battery modules, the enclosures, the BMS inverters, thermal controls, and to confirm that it meets established safety performance criteria. And then 9540A is the test method for evaluating thermal runaway and fire propagation. So the UL 9540A is a destructive testing method that measures how a system behaves during the thermal runaway, including fire spread, gas production, heat release, and explosion potential. It provides the scientific data needed to justify safety distances, venting, and mitigation. And I had, which I don't think it's going to work, but you can give me 1 second. Here it is. So this is a 1-minute video about, just to give you an idea of what they do for, it's called large-scale fire safety tests. Let me just get my screen to be in sync with that one. if I can. Oops, sorry. So I'm just going to go to the right. So what they did. So right here, that's, oh, can you see it? No, you can't see. It's different from what I have. On one side. So that right there is they're intentionally engaging this box with a fire, and it's surrounded by other segmented boxes, and the whole idea of the test is to see if it will spread to other boxes. So that you can see is a box fully engaged with the box behind it. And, you know, again, the idea is what happens to the other boxes is that this is engaged. So they intentionally opened up all the doors on this container, which wouldn't happen in a normal fire, but that's in order to allow the oxygen in so they can really get this thing going. And so they let it go and see what happens. In this particular one, I think they let it go for 15 hours, and then they didn't put it out, they didn't try to stop it, they just let it go. And this is based on the newest technology, which is similar to what's being proposed here. So that shows you like the temperature in the boxes around it. And this is just, it shows you that the box that's on fire is 1,300 degrees Celsius. The other boxes are much lower throughout the test. And then that shows you what happened to the other boxes, which is none of them became engaged. It was just the one box. So the technology that they have right now is it's designed to try to contain the fire to one segment. And that's what the testing, the level of large-scale fire testing is trying to accomplish. And every proposal is required to go through that testing. And we will also require that as well to make sure that if it is approved, that they use a technology that has been vetted and tested through this type of safety concerns. So let me see if I can get back to my presentation here. All right. All right, let me see if I can still do my slide here. Okay, all right. Hopefully it doesn't start up while I'm going. So now I wanted to turn it over to the fire chief to talk about the safety standards that the fire department uses and what they'll be looking at. And just remember, all of this is somewhat speculative because, you know, the proposal is not complete yet, but this is what they'll be looking at. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, and thank you to the board. As he stated, the process happens outside our hands. The state has the process. So my job and my responsibility is that if it is passed, that is held to the highest standards, safety standards applicable. And myself, the deputy, and Lieutenant Smith, that's what we've been doing the past 5 months. So it's not a case of, we're just going to wait to see what happens. We don't have a say in the permit. But if the permit's processed and approved, this is what we're responsible for doing. So I just want to give everyone an insight that if it passes, this is what we will be doing to ensure the safety for the residents and the firefighters are met. So it's required that NFPA 855 compliance documentation for the site layout, separation distances, detection systems, fire suppression systems, and hazard mitigations are met. It also requires a proof of UL 9540 certification for the exact system being installed. So as the town manager said, 9540 is a certification. They cannot install something if it does not meet UL 9540. We also require that UL 9540A test reports to validate proposed separation distances, venting strategies, and protection against thermal runaway. 9540A is the testing that takes place. The video that the town manager showed you is the testing that takes place. What's happened in a number of these instances that there has been fires, which has been 8 in 2024 and 5 in 2025 so far, is these facilities haven't been held to that standard. So as this process plays out, East Point is going to be forced to be held to this higher standard. It's to ensure that the system design addresses fire department access, roadway clearance, and staging areas in all fire lanes. So essentially what NFPA 855 is the enforcing and application layer translating UL test results into code-compliant installation and operational rules. So we get 9540A, the tests, and then we use that for 9540, the certification, and then we go to them and say, we're enforcing NFPA 855, and we use those tools to enforce them to do that. They have no choice at that point. So NFPA 855 provides the baseline siting rules, but UL 9540A data gives the fire department the evidence to determine if containers or racks need greater spacing than the minimum, explosion vents, gas exhaust systems, or barriers must be added, which is also coming under NFPA 68 and NFPA 69. The best location presents risk to adjacent homes, critical infrastructure, or community spaces. The fire department then uses these standards together to prevent fire spread, limit explosion hazards, and protect nearby properties. So requiring fire protection and detection systems, NFPA 855 dictates what must be included. So again, they don't have a choice in this. Heat, smoke, gas detection systems, BMS alarms tied to facility monitoring, which is like a building management system. So it's a computerized system that gives us immediate feedback of what's happening in the other containers. So in the video that the town manager showed you, they showed one container on fire. In the other containers, they have measuring devices to let us know what the heat is in those containers. And from what I've been told, speaking to a number of professionals, the standard that they're forcing these companies to come to now is there is no extension from that existing, the unit that's on fire. But if we get readings through the BMS system that signifies otherwise, we as the fire department then make decisions, the same as we do at any fire that we go to. No fire is the same. We have to make decisions on the go. If we see the temperatures rising in another container, then we probably will use water to cool that other container down. But the best practices that are being practiced throughout the country is for these types of fires to not apply water to it, to allow the fire to burn itself out, and it doesn't extend to the other containers. Now, people want to go and use examples of what's happening. Again, those containers were not held to the standards that are in place right now. Fire suppression or containment strategies, signage, labeling, and emergency disconnects. And then UL 9540 and UL 9540A verify that these systems are appropriate for the specific battery chemistry and configuration. Again, this information has to be directly correlated with the equipment they're putting in. They can't give us data for something that they're not installing on their site, and we'll ensure that they do that. So the emergency response plan and response planning. You know, people have said, well, there's no plan in place. It's a working document. This facility probably would, my guess is not going to be built for another 2 years after everything's said and done. I, as the chief, don't want to put something down in writing in concrete of this is how we're going to respond to this emergency when things may change 2 years from now. But is there an emergency plan being formulated? Yes. We have emergency plans throughout the town in case there's something that happens. So the fire department uses NFPA 855 and UL 9540A data to prepare for real-world incidents, determining safe standoff distances, identifying gases likely to be released during the thermal runaway, planning evacuation or shelter-in-place triggers, establishing on-site firefighting strategies, and training personnel in hazards unique to lithium-ion battery systems. So statements that have been made haven't been correct, referring that I said everyone's going to shelter in place. The end of that sentence was, they may shelter in place, or we may have to do a larger scale evacuation. Again, each fire is different. Each incident is different. But again, there's statements being made that goes back to what I said, but the sentence wasn't completed. So this is what we're going to use NFPA 55 and the UL standards for. So, like I said, we have no ability to deny the application, deny the permit, or anything like that. What I have an obligation to do when I took the job as chief of the department is to ensure the safety of the residents of Tewksbury and the firefighters of my department. And if anyone questions that, they're terribly mistaken.
Madam Chair, so that really concludes our presentation. I would just wrap up by saying, as the chief alluded to, is that a lot of these things, the emergency response plan, they're not going to be finalized until much later, but what we will do is memorialize inside the host community agreement that these things have to be done. A lot of them are required anyway by statute and by code and everything else, but we are going to put them in. And in the interest of transparency, a lot of these things that you could make one blanket statement that they have to comply to NFPA 855 and UL 9540, and it would cover all these things, but we will probably itemize all these things that we want, things like the distance between the containers, you know, where the fuel is stored on the site, and is it next to, how close is it to the batteries themselves. We will itemize all those things, even though they're not required to be done that way, just in the interest of providing some level of transparency and comfort to people that they understand that these things are being addressed and that they weren't forgotten by the town. So we want to make sure that they are addressed. And yeah, I will say that because the process is not a process that I think lends itself well at the local level, we're trying to do a better job of including everyone in that process, as cumbersome as it is, and that's one of the reasons we're here today. So we want to stay engaged with the Board of Health, both with the elected members and with the director, as well as all of the other department heads in town, to make sure that we're getting your input, that everybody understands what is happening, and that we're doing the best that we can to make sure that the town's safety interests are protected throughout this process. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate you both coming in. And kind of before I open it up to questions, I did want to say, like, I'm happy that you had 5 to 6 months to look into this. I think, speaking for myself and maybe some others, I think the board would have appreciated having the same amount of time, and I do understand that there was differences. To to really dive in because we weren't able to dive into this until October, pretty much, when we received all the emails from residents with concerns. And so this is why. Another thing, Fire Chief, you had mentioned that your job is the public safety and health, and that is ours as well. And that is why we want to work together with the town to ensure that everything is safe. And we do understand that this is a state thing, that we do not have necessarily the whole, we can't determine where it's going, but if it is coming here, we want to make sure, us as a board, and I'm going to speak for myself, I want to make sure that my hands and my conscience is clear that we have done everything to ensure the safety of the public health and the resident safety of every single resident in this town. And I'm sure that's what you feel too, as a, as a first responder and everything. And it's not an easy, road. As a nurse, I understand that as well. That's part of my job. So health and safety is my primary thing, and so that is why I am asking for transparency, and I'm glad that you guys are here to come in front of everyone and kind of go through everything, and I hope that this continues and we work together with that.
And thank you, and I completely understand and recognize what your issues are, and I apologize for not coming sooner. Like I said, this is a new process for all of us. And but I think it would have been better if I was here sooner, and so I'm here now, and the process is still quite long, and so there's a great, plenty of opportunity for the board and the town to stay engaged, stay transparent, and keep the process moving, and do the best we can to make it a transparent and thorough process to protect the interests of the town.
Thank you. I will open it up to the members of the board if they have any questions for the town manager or the fire chief.
I have a few. Well, first, thank you for being here. It means a lot to us. A lot of the questions that I had were referring to the NFPA 855 standards, as well as the NFPA 9850A and the new standards that came out in March of 2025, which I'm sure that's something you're aware of and you're working with. I have all the trust in the world for our fire department. I have no questions whatsoever. I do know that most of the questions that we have, you've answered them. You've answered a lot of them, but there's still a lot of questions that we do have. And knowing that this is going to be going on for quite some time, I know there's no plan in place right now. It's something that we all wish we had, and that's what we're all looking for. So we too are going through this, trying to figure out a way to make sure that we work together, number one, and that it's transparent for us and for our residents. I just had a couple of, are we going to be able to speak to Hillman?
Yes.
Okay, afterwards, okay. So again, the questions that I had, I can't answer because you've answered them all. And I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
George,
I don't have any questions, but I have just a slight.
your mic's off.
I don't have any questions. What I'd like to do is the minutes from October when we had Mr. Hugo, the Director of Strategy and Governmental Relations for the Massachusetts Association Health Boards in the presentation he gave, I would like to forward them to the chair of the planning board, the select board, and the town manager. Without me reading them, basically he's stating that the Board of Health should be one of the first boards that's contacted. And I'm not trying to flex any muscle. I just would like them forwarded to those, because he knows a lot of stuff that we're learning. Thank you.
Pam?
I do have one question. Well, I have a lot of them, but
We all do.
Mike,
you did answer
get
many
closer to your
of
mic.
them. Am I not close enough to my mic?
Nope.
Okay, but I wanted to ask you, you mentioned a few times that the department would be responding to any indications that they got of anything serious going on at the plant. it was my understanding that the monitoring is done in Texas. So can you tell how that works?
So there'll be a fire alarm system in that building that will be connected to an alarm company, not only to their main base in Texas, and I won't speak for East Point and their process, but for the fire department process, there needs to be an alarm system that notifies us of something that's going on there. What we also will require them to do is hook into our radio box system, which is an automatic system that goes directly to our dispatch center. So in other words, it doesn't go to a call center first. If something happens, it will immediately, we'll get notified in the dispatch center that there's something going on there, and we will respond to that site. So yes, their main brains, I guess, will be in Texas, but as far as the notification of something happening, we also get notified of that at the state, through the dispatch center.
So it's more direct than it sounded? Okay. The other thing I wondered about is if, and this may be a question for the company and not for you, so I apologize in advance if it is, but you mentioned that a fire would be allowed to burn out, a single fire, so long as it wasn't endangering any other parts of the plant. Are you aware, have there been studies done or anything like that of what is the result of such a fire in terms of any air contamination and that sort of thing?
Yes. One of the companies that, I looked at, I tried to find an independent company that wasn't associated with any, and they reviewed 35 fires from 2012 to 2024. In none of the review cases of environmental sampling related to the best fire events were contaminant concentrations found that would pose a public health concern or necessitate further remediation. This finding includes airborne contamination sampling conducted on-site, off-site, and within nearby communities, as well as relevant sampling of water from firefighting activities, automatic suppressant system runoffs, and groundwater testings. So there has been studies done. There has been, people want to use, some of you may have heard of it as Moss Point in California, which is comparing apples to oranges, because that fire was in a building. These are outside units. But even during that fire, the air sampling that was done by the EPA showed there was no higher level, levels above the standard. So there has been studies done. What the studies have shown, and not even studies, but real world applications, is when the smoke rises, it dissipates the majority of those things. Now, let me be clear on that. Any smoke is dangerous. A house catches on fire, and that smoke is dangerous. But with this battery energy storage facility, what they're showing is that the particles are not any more dangerous. And I know some people are not going to believe that, and that's fine. All I'm going by is real data. And I'm more than open to see if people have data that opposes that. They can email it to me and I'll look at that too. But the information that I've gained in speaking to, subject matter experts, I was on the phone with one this afternoon before I came here tonight, because what I didn't want to do is make statements that came back to be false. And that's what, again, I was told this afternoon.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions because you guys all asked them, so.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out one thing that I found very interesting on the, and where it had the facility, if you look at it, there really wasn't probably, I'm no expert on 500 yards or whatever, but didn't it look like that facility had about half a mile at least before there was even anything else? So I'm very concerned about that.
Is that a question or?
No, it was just a comment that we might see that
Okay.
for our own selves.
So I do have a couple of questions, both for town and for the chief. So I'll start off with, as far as the 9540A test report, have you received, and I know this, you had mentioned that it's really, you're not able to note because it's not on the site and in the place, but have you received any type of test report for this exact battery chemistry and configuration that will be going into any site in Tewksbury, like that location?
I haven't received specific to this. In my discussions with East Point is it hasn't been released by the manufacturer yet. But again, that's something that has to come to us. It will go before the siting board, and once it goes to them, we, of course, can now review it also. And that's one of the things that, when the town manager talked about, us retaining a third party. By no means am I passing myself off as a subject matter expert when it comes to battery storage and the in-depthness that's required to know it. I need to defer to someone that's their livelihood, is this type of fire. So when we get that information, that's what I want to send to a third party to make sure that it meets exactly what they're saying, so that what they're telling us and what it shows up in the UL testing is the same.
Okay. Thank you. And then another question is, from my understanding is that, and from what I've looked into, and it could be a different type, so I'm not going to say that it's this exact type, but even before the fire actually ignites, there is a lot of chemicals and like that is occurring prior to the actual ignite of the fire that could be leaching and going into the air. And in this particular site, there is a home, from my understanding, less than 50 feet away. Have you recognized how that would impact, and if there is that such of a chemical reaction that in the air? I know you mentioned that there was a test and the studies of that, but like prior to even knowing that it's on fire, could that be considered, or is that something that you are considering looking into to ensure that there is nothing like carbon monoxide kind of deal?
Yeah, that's something that, as we go through the process with the third party, that's the type of information I want to find out. Is, okay, what happens before the fire ignites? The system itself has an exhaust system in place to try to exhaust any type of, things that are going on there. It also, the reason why they say let the fire burn too is because at that point, the gas is being burnt off, as opposed to the gas is building up inside that box. So as the fire burns, the gases are being burnt off also. But as far as the pre-fire, when it's smoking, when is the dissipation happening? That's the type of thing I want a third party, independent, that we retain to advise us that we're doing our job correctly.
I believe that 9540A testing process involves them to monitor the release of, gases, throughout that whole test. So they would, I imagine, have data when they provide that result to us before the fire actually starts, to find out exactly the question you're asking, what's being released before it actually engages.
But it's not an independent study, it's from the company, correct?
The UL 9540?
So all the testing results, like when they do test it, is it, and this might be something from the company that might be answered, but it's a testing done by the company's professionals, not an independent, completely neutral place, correct?
I'll defer to them, but I believe it's being done by UL. So it's like any piece of appliance at your house that has a UL stamp on it.
Okay.
Underwriter Laboratories, they're the ones running the test, I believe.
Okay.
But I'll let them know.
No, that's great, thank you. And then another question that I had, and that might be for the town manager, is you had mentioned about the ACA, HCA, and so will you be, I know that's the town stuff, but will the Board of Health be informed or consented or anything about like public health and safety on that HCA portion? Or is that something that is just going to be within the town manager and the select board.
So I have no problem coming back to the board, and may have to be an executive session, to like give you that section of the HCA that has all this health and safety concerns. That's not nearly as sensitive, because there's not really a big dispute about that between us and the petitioner. The issues that we're negotiating and are more sensitive are things like, liabilities, tax revenues, and commissioning, what it costs to decommission a place like that. And so those are things that we'd be doing.
Yep.
But you might be interested in some of that as well, so that might be
Yes.
that.
Because that was actually one of my questions for you, of like, who would be liable of, if they're like drinking water contamination for whatever reason, those types of things, knowing in the site where it is, people and what, like the sewage, what would be the liability? And you may or may not have that answer right now, and that might be something that goes into the HCA, but.
Well, I could just say that, like, as far as the decommissioning goes, that would be part of the HCA, and that's something that that will be finalized in that. And then, as far as liability from, if something's contaminated, that's already protected by statute anyway. If you contaminate a piece of property, it follows you around. So, but we could also, that's not an issue of putting language in there of something of that nature. But I have no problem coming back to the board and giving you an update on where we are and taking any feedback from the board if you think that there's something that's left out. That's kind of why we're here today, so.
No, and I appreciate that. I think one of the feedback that I received, and the last time we've had this many people in a Board of Health meeting, was that they weren't feeling heard. And we were the first ones that actually put it in front to have them be heard. And so I think that is, and I understand, there is a part of me that understands the whole state part, and there is a part of me that also understands their concern, out of fear, not knowing, when you don't have enough information, or information isn't being provided and it's very hush-hush, people are going to have fear, they're going to have concerns, they're going to have mistrust, which you had mentioned. And so part of what I've always wanted in the whole town was to have the transparency and to be able to communicate back as much as possible and to ensure that we are doing what we can. And so I do appreciate you guys coming up and working with us, and I do look forward to continuing with that. So thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I do. I found my notes. You had said that you had visited the site in North Reading. How many units are there, and how many are proposed for our town?
Oh, this is much smaller. I think that was like 5 megawatts, and this is 125 megawatts, so it's very small. And the only value of going to see a site like that was just to see how it's set up and listen to the noise that one unit makes and trying to understand. Unfortunately, the day we went, it was like a monsoon. It was pouring out. So I was hearing more rain than it was anything, but we do there are some other sites that we want to visit too, particularly around, there's some value from the noise perspective, of going to see a site that's comparable to the one that's being proposed. So we do plan to visit more sites.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last question. I just have one last question. Do you ever consider, and I don't know which party would do this, looking at a smaller site instead of something so large? I think that's what scares a lot of people as well.
A smaller site or a smaller project?
Smaller project.
So that's not really up to the town. That's because, like I said, we're not the permit granting authority. It's going before the state. That's what's being proposed. So we don't really have a say in the size or the location of where it's being proposed. Except to say that, we want protections in place.
All right. So you couldn't recommend that it would be probably best to try to go with something smaller?
Well, I'd have to look into what the pros and cons are based on the size and what that is. And when we get these experts on board, maybe that'll provide us with information that will help us with that.
Okay, thank you.
And I just have one more question, sorry, for the fire chief. if, depending on the fire, and I know you said every fire is very different and it would depend, but in a situation where maybe you do need to go out, how many firefighters and hours do you think that it could require in maybe like an average, do you think?
It honestly depends on the type. So there was a fire in Arizona about a month and a half ago, and they were done, and I believe they responded at 7 p.m. and they were wrapping up at 1 a.m. So that happened, but then you have other fires that could take longer. As far as staffing, at nighttime, we have 12 firefighters on duty. Daytime, we have 14. What we also have is the accessibility of the District 6 hazmat team,
Okay.
which is going to be huge. So I probably should have mentioned this also. What they do is, it's a district-wide team that we have 2 members on. We're hoping to get a 3rd member with it also, is they respond as a team. They're highly trained when it comes to hazardous materials. They have monitoring devices. They actually just bought new up-to-date ones that they're actually going to be training at our training room next month, that I plan to talk to the leader of that group. My understanding with that is they're able to go in the neighborhoods with the monitoring devices, and we get live-time data in the incident command center. So as, they go to, Emerald Court, pick a number. One of their guys will be there with the monitor device and taking air quality samples, and we're getting immediate feedback from that. So it's not only going to be our fire department, it's going to be District 6, and if need be, we have mutual aid agreements set up with other towns. So if we're tied up there, it's the same as any other fire. We call other towns in to cover our station as we're doing that. But a big component of that is the District 6 hazmat team. They're highly trained individuals when it comes to this. I've had a number of discussions with one of the members that's on our department. He's actually gone to seminars and listened to people that have worked at some of these fires and what they saw. And again, and people aren't going to like it, but the air monitoring that they saw at those fires wasn't above the limit, so that's going to be a huge resource for us to have. But as far as trying to put a number on how long it's going to take us, it depends how long it takes for the fire to burn itself out at that point.
Now, when you say above the limit, are they speaking of just like healthy people? So, because my concern and thinking as a nurse, putting my nurse hat on, is compromised members. So in that area, there are a lot of elderly, no offense, but some of them are not very healthy, right? And they have a lot of health conditions, respiratory being one of them, and also mobility issues, and some are on oxygen and things like that. So are they testing it against healthy people and those limitations, or is it something that, would possibly, for me, may not affect me, but for someone who does have an issue would definitely affect them?
My understanding is they're using, whether it's EPA standards or whatever standards they have in place. So how they do that, that's another thing with a third-party expert that we get more information about. So I'm not going to tell you for sure, but I know they're using, I believe it's the EPA standards that they go by, that they're saying, okay, what's the, limit if it gets above that it's dangerous? Is it dangerous to the healthy person, unhealthy person? I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question, sorry. So Emerald Court, from my understanding, one of the questions one of the things that I had heard from residents was that it is a one-way in, one-way out location. And so that was concerning for some, especially if in the event they are not able to shelter in place and you do need to evacuate. Has the fire department with and I don't know if there's been a fire there before, but how would you, or have you thought or planned, or what would be the plan for getting the trucks in and out? Because those are pretty big trucks, in and out with cars and people probably in panic. Have you processed that or thought about a plan for?
I mean, honestly, it's something we have to be concerned of right now.
Right.
You have a set of railroad tracks going behind that development that carries who knows what.
Yes.
And when you talk about, do you lose sleep? I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
And so we have to be prepared if that happens. Unfortunately, there is no second way out.
Yeah.
When it was built, it was built that way. So are we prepared? Yeah, I mean, the fire isn't going to be in Emerald Court, so we're not going to have to try to get the apparatus down there. We might have to get ambulances in, yes, but it's a two-way road. And we'll set up something, so they come in, they'll probably go straight across Court Street to Old Boston Road out to Main Street to head north. But yeah, I mean, we have to be concerned for that right now, even if this doesn't get approved.
Right.
It's something we need to be concerned with.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one last one. I'm sorry, I promise. If it is approved and in the event of a fire or explosion, do we have the equipment to handle it? And I know you have other towns that will help out, but have you looked at the equipment to make sure we have what is needed to take care of something like that?
I believe we do, because again, if it's built to the UL 9540A standard, we have the testing, then we're dealing with one unit. Okay, now let's say, for whatever reason that doesn't happen. I do believe, but part of the agreement that we're trying to work out, and I don't know if I can say this, that we're putting in for equipment. We're requesting certain equipment, certain monitoring meters, training. So every member of this department will be trained every year. And it's not going to be like we normally do training, which is on duty. They'll be required to backfill for our members to be trained. So off-duty guys will have to come in, so they'll have to pay overtime for those people to come in. So we can specifically train at that site for, however number of hours that third-party consultant that we get recommends for us. So that's being addressed in the agreement. So, but as it stands right now, I do believe we have the equipment, but could we use more equipment? Of course. Does the town have finite, finances to give us every piece of equipment? No. So we are going to use this opportunity to get whatever equipment that we think we may need.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We're going to go, I don't even know where my agenda is anymore. So many papers. 1 second. So next we'll hear from the representatives of Hillman, or East Point, if you'd like to come up for your presentation. And then I'll just have you state your name and your address. Yeah.
Good evening, Chair Baraga and members of the board and the community here tonight. My name is Maggie Howe. I'm the Director of Project Development at East Point Energy, and I'm here representing Hillman Energy Center. My address is in Charlottesville, Virginia, so I'm not sure if that's helpful.
And Tyler Klein, Vice President of Project Development at East Point Energy, also in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Thank you. And if you don't mind just putting your names on that piece of paper too after. Thanks.
Madam Chair, if I may make a statement for added into the minutes. Adam?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. 6 weeks from tonight, we will be celebrating the New Year's of 2026, beginning with the 250th anniversary of our blessed country. Tewksbury was incorporated in 1734, some 41 years before our independence. According to my guesstimation, it would be in the vicinity of 300 to 400 possible townspeople have been elected to our Board of Health. So I sit in the citizen's seat, not my seat. We take the oath, this project, very seriously. In fact, since New England Telephone installed the wires, this BESS project, I dare say, will be the greatest electrical investment since. I'd like to thank Maggie Howe, Director of Project Development, and Tyler Klein, VP of Project Development, for their attendance. Director Gillis previously requested a person from the firm to be at our last meeting. Upon that non-occurrence, I had a major concern that the investment is huge, and a non-show tonight would have made me beg the question, are they as concerned as we, the members of the Board of Health, are about this project? Thank you.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you for your comments and thank you for inviting us here tonight. I apologize that we haven't been before this board before. I recognize the concerns that you have. I think that they're all valid. I think you have great questions, and I think the community does as well. Tyler and I were both in attendance at the October 9th public hearing for the EFSB, and although I was on maternity leave earlier this year, I was unfortunately not here, but Tyler Klein was here for some of the meetings in March. So we're very invested in this project and in the relationship with the community, and we want to work to ensure that questions are addressed. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. To be honest, I feel like my thunder has been stolen a little bit. A lot of the topics that I was going to bring up, John and Chief Kearns already spoke to. But I will do my best to give an overview, and then hopefully we can have time to address any questions that you have as well. And I do want to note that although it doesn't seem like there will be an opportunity for back and forth with the public, we intend to remain through the public comment period and are really excited and open to hearing all the questions and feedback that come through tonight. Great. Okay, so the Hillman Energy Center. This is a 125 megawatt, 4-hour duration grid scale energy storage project. This is a visual representation of what the site would look like. It would connect to the existing 115 kilovolt substation that's owned by National Grid, which is a large part of the reason that this site is so desirable, both for the industrial zoning and for the proximity to the electrical grid. And as you probably know, it's sited on a 4.5 acre I2 site here. So John went into even more detail than I intend to around the EFSB process. I think it's helpful to orient towards this because I think the meat of the detailed questions that you are asking, they haven't been answered yet. So there's a good reason that you have these questions and you have these concerns, but that moment is coming. The evidentiary hearings, both the discovery process, which has a back and forth with written responses, as well as the evidentiary hearings, which involve subject matter experts sworn under oath, providing testimony and answering questions with cross-examination. I mean, that is the moment where we're going to be providing the level of detail that I think you guys are asking for and deserve through this process. So I want to level set that I probably am not going to have all the answers that you're hoping for tonight. But I do want to say that I hear these questions, I think they're valid, and there is a moment coming where it will be more appropriate to answer them in the level of detail that you're seeking. I also want to emphasize that although this is outside of the jurisdiction of the town, it's run through the state, there is a commitment by the state towards transparency, and everything that we file can be seen online through this website, which if you don't have, we're happy to send it to you, but all the documents that we provide, all the testimony, all of the discovery processes and written answers will all be uploaded to the site for everyone to have access to. We've spoken a lot about what materials will and will not be available, and I just want to highlight a couple of the documents that have not yet been filed but will soon be filed with the EFSB that are going to provide more of these detailed pieces of information you're seeking. So the first one here, UL certifications and reports to include burn test data. So this is the UL 9540A fire test that John had a video for. Every battery that is manufactured in the United States has to go through this UL 9540A burn testing. This is very unusual. We do not require gas stations to light on fire and study what comes off of them, right? There are a lot of hazardous risks, a lot of flammable and fire-based concerns that exist in our society. In my opinion, battery energy storage facilities go above and beyond. We force a fire at the cell, the module, the rack, and then the unit level. And then it's studied in depth what gases are coming off, how the fire behaves, and that data then informs design and how you can better contain the fire to a smaller and smaller unit of the battery. I say we, I don't do that testing. I'm not a fire engineer. But there are third parties that conduct that testing on behalf of the battery manufacturers. And so that independent third party data, that UL 9540A test result and other burn data is what we will file and what Chief Kearns and his team and other planning and safety experts can use to incorporate and design an emergency response plan that makes sense for this specific site. Other data that we will be releasing, the carbon monoxide and volatile organic compounds emissions report. So this takes the data of what, essentially what gases are coming off of from the burn test, and then that overlays it with local weather patterns, sort of worst case scenarios. So you're looking at where would the components of the gas coming off of the battery, where would those blow, right? And how would that inform what sort of an evacuation plan or other emergency response plan we may want to build in? So that's the second one there. The third one is called a hazard mitigation analysis. This is something that's required by NFPA 855, and it looks at sort of all of the potential hazards based on the technology that we're providing. And that again informs the last item here, which is the emergency response plan. And I do have the word draft because, as Chief Kearns indicated, this could evolve up until construction, operation, and honestly over the life of the asset. We revisit at regular intervals to say what's working, what's not working, what new features need to be incorporated in this plan. And that's not done in a vacuum. That's done with a third-party safety planning expert as well as the local first responders. Okay. I tried to just briefly call out what I understand to be some of the key concerns, having watched previous Board of Health meetings and having attended the October 9th public hearing. My understanding is that safety is a huge concern for the locality, and noise is a major concern for the locality. And I think it's fair that you have questions. I think these are things that we think about too, and that are very important for us to consider as part of the design of a system. So for safety, I think it's important to remember that you don't have to rely on us as East Point being a good corporate citizen. We want to be, we aspire to be, we think that we are good corporate citizens, but you don't have to just take us at face value. There are rigorous codes and standards, both through the fire code, building code, and imposed through mechanisms like the host community agreement, like the conditions of the EFSB, that will hold us accountable and layer on additional measures of safety above and beyond what those codes and standards are. So this, we are open to having conversations, and this is a great moment where if there are additional layers and conditions that you want to put on, the HCA is a great mechanism for that, and the conditions of the EFSB, and participating in those processes is what will help drive to conclusion on those. I think it's also important to highlight that we use proven technologies that have gone through all the appropriate testing. We have advanced safety equipment and design. So these systems are evolving quickly. The code cycle is updated actually every 3 years right now. So we are keeping ourselves accountable to what the most current codes and standards and design features are, and what is considered to be the safest and best in class. We also find that partnerships with the local first responders are essential. We can't do this in a vacuum. And so having their expertise and their input on what will work here locally is key. We talked a lot about monitoring tonight. We do have 24/7, 365 monitoring for these systems. And that includes, each unit, data around how is the cell performing? What's the state of charge? What gases could be coming off in the container, if any, that indicate some sort of malfunction, all the way up to a thermal event. And there is regular preventative and ongoing maintenance that helps respond to any unusual activity within the cells. So we're not waiting for a thermal runaway event to respond. We want to catch that issue much, much earlier when you're seeing some other more leading indicator that can help avoid an event like that from taking place. So we consider that part of the safety plan as well. Sound. There have been a lot of questions about sound, a lot of concerns about sound. We develop in a lot of states, and I can tell you that Massachusetts state sound policy is by far the strictest of any place that we work. So while I hear that there are concerns around sound, I can promise you that your state is really advocating for you and having a minimal impact in terms of sound. It's even more strict than the town of Tewksbury bylaws. So we have done a sound study. You can sort of see the visual image of that in terms of impacts. And in order to be in compliance with the state policy, we are pulling in sound attenuation barriers, which is a fancy way to say a sound wall. We have low noise equipment selected for that feature. And we have sort of enhancements that go onto that help muffle the noise and further silence the equipment. There is a full sound report that's available, again, through the EFSB docket. Happy to send that to you if you haven't seen it yet. But there will also be opportunities for enforcement to verify the sound as time goes on. You don't just have to take our word for it in the plan.
Those of us that can't actually see what's up on that schematic that you're showing,
Sure.
colored lines, I really don't know what they mean. So would you mind explaining that, please?
Sure, if the chair allows. So
Please.
I'll start by saying I'm not a sound engineer, so I may get out of my depth here. But these colors represent the decibels or the sound impact at various distances from the units themselves. So what this is showing, the dark blue line is 45 decibels, the light blue line is 40 decibels, and the green line is 50. In most cases, that would, again, not in Massachusetts, but in many places, sort of being in that range would be consistent with a residential zoning noise requirement. In the state of Massachusetts, it's not actually a flat rate, so it's based on the ambient sound. You have to do a study beforehand, and then the limits are set on you can't increase beyond a certain amount from whatever the ambient sound is. So it's actually more stringent than just those flat rates that East Point often sees working in other localities outside of Massachusetts. So it's not really as easy as just saying a specific line will say that we're in compliance or we're not. It's based on a more complicated set of data, which I apologize, but I don't think is appropriate to get into tonight, but I'd be happy to follow up with you and give you more information if you're interested.
Thank you.
It's me. So this last slide here is, again, just an orientation towards the site today. So on the left, this is what the site looks like under its current operation. On the right is a visual rendering of what it would look like with the sound barrier and then some vegetative screening out front. And I think it's important to highlight this because I think the vast majority of the time, once construction's complete and this is operational, you won't even know that it's there. You're not going to see it. You're not going to hear it. And I do hear all the concerns that you have, and I don't mean to brush over those. I think they're valid and they deserve to be addressed. But I want to put this image up because this is our orientation. This is what we're working towards. And we hope that we can bring you along with us with that vision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in front of the board. I'm going to leave it to the members if they have any questions.
I have a few.
Okay.
Hopefully you can answer them, but you might not be able to. How will the units be monitored for snow and ice accumulation to prevent issues with proper venting of units in an emergency?
That's a great question. We will have a plan for that. It will be part of our operation and maintenance plan to manage for snow and ice removal. I don't have the details of that for you today. And I don't know that we will have that before the permit, but I imagine that's something that would be a condition that's required to have in place either before construction or before operation.
Okay, thank you. And how far will the remote operating station be? I think we may have gone over this. And will it be monitored 24 hours per day by personnel present at that operating station?
Yes, so there are requirements for 24/7, 365 monitoring by a human to watch for, in addition to sort of automated alarms that are in place. It's interesting that the Texas piece has really become a point of concern and fixture here. So we do have one operational project, one project that's under construction in Texas, and there will be my understanding is that there will be a Texas-based monitoring facility for those. I don't think that we have yet finalized the exact location for where this site will be monitored. Is your concern driven by response time or having somebody local?
My next question, how long would it take a technician to get to the BESS site to respond to an alarm?
Yeah, great question. So there are different localities, different states have addressed this in different ways. I think the most robust set of standards is in New York State. They have a 4-hour on-site requirement, and I think it's 15 minutes available by phone to have a subject matter expert on the phone. I don't know that we have landed on something definitive, but again, I think conditions of the permit and or the HCA could be a great place to specify what the outside time would be.
Okay. And has a study been made to determine whether the existing fire water supply and pressure are adequate enough in case there was a thermal runaway?
We are working on having that test conducted. We're in process on that, but we don't have results yet to share.
Okay.
I think that's an important question, though.
I have more. Just give me one moment. And I know our fire department will adhere to the NFPA 855s, but can you confirm that you will also adhere to the same standards?
Yes, ma'am. That's very important to us.
Okay. And what do you normally have for plans for long-term monitoring and maintenance of the BESS to ensure ongoing safety?
Can you tell me more about that question?
What plans do you have in place, maybe at other places where you have an ongoing maintenance, like you have a maintenance plan like we would in any business? Is there a long-term maintenance plan and policy?
Yeah, again, that's not something that we necessarily have designed today, but it's something that we would certainly have before operation and something we'd be happy to put in a more specific outside date for. But yes, operation and maintenance plans, long-term service agreements with service providers are an essential part of a battery storage system and involve regular preventative as well as corrective maintenance based on some sort of malfunction that we're detecting through the monitoring.
So this is all new to us, so these questions.
These are very good questions. Yeah, no, please ask them.
How frequently will inspections be conducted, and who is responsible to do them?
You want me to?
Yeah, do you have more?
Sure. Get close enough here. So it's a really good question. Oftentimes, we will work directly with the manufacturers of the equipment. We will also connect with third-party long-term service agreement professionals. So it really just depends. And to Maggie's point, we haven't landed quite yet where we're going to be on this project, as that's something we haven't landed. But what we do with our current sites that are either in operation or under construction is we are contracting with a third-party long-term services provider.
Okay.
Is that answering your question?
Thank you, it does. And my last question, we sort of touched on it, but what insurance or liability measures are in place to protect the town and its residents in case there is a fire or an explosion related to the site?
Do you mean insurance on the project or?
Insurance on the total project, and what happens if there is a fire and things, people lose their homes or people can't go to work, or how is all of this protected?
That's a great question. I hear the laughter and maybe the tension bubbling over with that question. And I wish that I had a more complete answer today. I don't have a complete answer for that. I can tell you that we do have very substantial insurance requirements that these projects are held to, and we can't finance them, we can't build them without those insurance plans being in place. I can't walk you through the details of what's covered in that insurance plan, but that's something that perhaps we could get into more as we get closer to construction or as part of the evidentiary hearings process.
Okay.
I'm just going to remind everyone, please, so that we can continue on. I know there's a lot of everything and emotions going on, so if we can just remain as quiet as possible for right now while we're asking the questions and going back and forth. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Those are all the questions I have, and I thank you so much for your answers, Laura.
I only have one, so I'm going to give you a break, but it still has to get back to monitoring. You almost stole my thunder, but no, that's fine. My background is I worked in the auto industry in Michigan for some years, and I'm just having a tough time with not having somebody even on a midnight shift there. So I would just like you to know, and the board members to know, that I'm going to be pushing with all the pressure I can to try to do what New York's doing, because I think we should. Thank you.
Thank you. And is that in terms of just having a response time that's in the hours sort of metric?
Yeah.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, I'll just give an example. I live in South Tewksbury, okay, and it's 2025, and sometimes phones and everything still do not work around here. So I just can't look at myself in the mirror at the end of the night and say, like, that call is going to get through to that person. I would prefer a person there. That's all. That's where I'm coming from. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment and for your questions.
Pam.
I'll apologize in advance if some of this information isn't quite correct, but it seems to be what I heard when I went to the public hearing that was in the high school. I understood that models of our plant were, or that the plant was similarly designed to some in Virginia. It was my understanding that those plants are not within 2 miles of population. Do you know about that, and why there might be such a restriction?
I'm not sure. No, I'm trying to think about what data that might have been. There are certainly many BESS facilities that are remote. We see that especially in the southwest part of this country, where you have big solar arrays that are providing electricity that are getting funneled into more electricity using locations like cities, right? So they're in the desert, and then the transmission lines are taking them into cities or other dense population areas. These units, though, are being built next to homes, schools, and in very dense urban areas all over the country. In fact, the first BESS unit in Massachusetts is co-located with a hospital in Boston. I think it's at Brigham's Women. So these can be safely built next to, again, schools, hospitals, residences, with the appropriate data, with the appropriate emergency response planning, and with the appropriate safety features being put into place. So I hear the concerns. I think they're valid, but I think they can be built safely and in a way that coexists with urban development.
Okay, it was also my understanding, 2 things. One, that the base has some barrier that prevents anything from getting into the groundwater or the soil. And it was my understanding that this unit was not going to have that. And I wondered if that's true, why the decision would be made that it doesn't need it.
I'm not familiar with that. I'm not an engineer. I think that's a really important question that we should be asking as part of the evidentiary hearing process. I don't have an answer for you, but it's a good question.
I'm asking questions. I'm sorry that you can't answer. I do have another question. It seems like a number of units that I've read about have their own fire remediation systems. And while I recognize that fire is not the most immediate danger, still, it doesn't seem that ours will be built that way. And I also wonder why.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that question?
Okay, so it's my understanding that larger units, containing many of these batteries, have their own fire remediation, so that if a fire began, it would, like a sprinkler system in a building, help begin to put the fire out. Is that not now considered to be something that should be done, since the fire test, and it was only one, by the way, I would love to know if there was only one test done like that, because to look at one test doesn't seem too exciting to me. But anyway, is it now the plan of building these that they no longer seem to need that?
That's a great question. And again, I'm not the subject matter expert in this, but here's my layperson's understanding. So there are fire suppression systems in these units, they're based primarily on the physical design and structure. So the application of water is not actually going to help put this fire out, and in many cases, it actually prolongs the fire. So the strategy is to contain the fire to the absolute smallest unit possible, which hopefully is the cell level, or if not the cell, then the module, if not the module, then the rack, if not the rack, worst case scenario, the container. And by containing it, you are suppressing the fire from spreading to other adjacent components of the structure. And that through this fire testing that they've done, and they force failure at the cell level, at the module level, the rack level. So they do many iterations of this test, getting sort of bigger and bigger as they go. And then what they found is that the most effective way to minimize fire and minimize the spread of fire and minimize the impact is to try and contain it to the smallest unit possible. So the strategy has just changed a little bit as they found that water is not really an effective mechanism for that.
Okay. With your map of that map, I'm assuming would have been our site, correct?
This one right here?
Yes.
Yes, this is
I'm looking at the footage on there. The noise level, even with the remediation, seems quite high as it gets close to buildings. And if I may be looking at the footage incorrectly, but I can see it closer here maybe than the audience can, because I can see your little detailed portion in the upper right. And 500 feet was a number that was quoted quite a lot to us by residents. And that looks quite high at 500 feet.
So the way that the Massachusetts noise policy, the state policy through the DEP is written, is that it doesn't actually matter how far away you are. It's based on the sensitive receptors and making sure that the impact to overall sound, wherever that sensitive receptor is or the home, that it's not increased by a certain amount over whatever the ambient noise is. So you have your baseline noise, you know, when crickets are out, when the wind is blowing, when trucks are driving by, and that's studied over a period of a couple of days, and there's an average that's taken. And then in Massachusetts, the ability to increase, your sound limits are based on your ability to increase above that base level. So what I can tell you is that we will be in compliance with that requirement, and we will not increase above whatever the ambient noise is as allowed by the state noise policy.
Do you happen to know how one could look up that particular regulation?
I'd be happy to follow up and send you more information about that.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
Chris?
Thank you. You had said on an earlier slide that you had proven core or care technologies. I don't want to misquote. What are
Use of proven core technology.
What are they?
So for us, the core technologies are the battery units themselves, the inverters, and the transformers. So those are kind of the key components that we think about. And there are certain, again, codes and standards and manufacturing requirements that apply to all of those. And we would not procure equipment, or we would not purchase equipment that doesn't meet those basic standards around safety and manufacturing best practices.
Okay, and then the last thing on that says preventative and ongoing maintenance. You can't give a guesstimate or at least something. What type of maintenance would you be doing? I know that Susan had touched on it and you kind of didn't really commit to anything.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think, these systems, there's some type of liquid cooling, or some of these have HVAC units. So there's all types of checks that you would do, just like you would do in your house for checking the air filter, right? So there are very similar checks that we would do on a preventative basis. And for a project of this size, I'd expect, and kind of, again, this is not in consultation with a third party that we brought on board specific to this project, but would expect, either someone on site every week, every other week. There could be a case in which someone's on site very frequently, just because that's the cadence of maintenance that's been agreed upon with that provider. So I would expect that maintenance, because of the size of the project, to be fairly routine, and it's not necessarily going to be the case even in a far-fetched scenario where we're not on site, for months at a time. I think that's going to be much more so that there's weeks, or again, depending on the nature of the agreement that we ultimately finalize with a third party when it comes time, could be much more frequent and on a matter of days.
I have one more thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
and I'm like, not sure if I'm going to say it, but you know what, I'm going to say it. You had mentioned that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so something to the effect of this can be built to work with the infrastructure and the urban whatever, removing yourself from the company. And I'm going to make an assumption, you know what they say, but I don't care. If this was in your backyard, I'm pretty sure that you'd be sitting with the rest of the people from the town with major concerns.
This is actually a question that I get a lot, and I appreciate you asking it. Based on what I know today, and I've had years to research this and to get comfortable with the codes and standards, I actually would be comfortable with having this in my backyard. And I don't expect everybody in this room to feel the same way, and I think people would land differently on this. But I do want to communicate that. I mean, and again, I've had years to research this and get to better understand the risks. But for me, no, it wouldn't bother me. Thank you for asking.
One quick follow-up question that I have is, I think people would be a lot more comfortable, I know I would, if there were at least a framework of some plans, but many times when the question has been asked, what will you do about this? What are you going to do about snow and ice, for instance, was asked earlier, and that sort of thing. The plan seems to not be able to be detailed until construction. At least, can you say why that is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll go back to this slide. So this is, I think, the data that is easiest for us to share and provide with you today. And we want to give you as much information as is reasonable and as feasible to provide today. The way that I think about it, asking for an O&M plan or an operations and maintenance plan for a facility like this is kind of like saying, can you please hire somebody to mow your lawn and work up a contract that's going to start 5 years from now? It's tricky, right? Because you can't confirm that that's going to be the best provider in the business at the time. And you can't confirm that that's the best person that you're going to want to work with at the time. So I hear the concern there, and I think it's very reasonable to set hard outside dates and goalposts by which we have to provide that to you. And perhaps there's even a coordination with the town that happens as those plans are drafted to ensure that everybody feels comfortable with what's being presented. But I don't expect that we will have a detailed operations and maintenance plan to provide to you as part of this permitting process.
And I understand what you've said, but I guess I don't understand why there couldn't be at least an outline. When you spoke about maintenance, for instance, there's certainly, if you have other plants, you know what kind of maintenance goes into that sort of project. Yeah. So it would seem as though there could be at least a usual, like, yeah, I usually have my lawn mowed 3 times a week during growing season or something like that. It seems like there could be, typically, we do X, Y, Z. And we have not, at least to my knowledge, and I've tried to read everything I can, but it would be helpful too if you put that site back up again where you can get new information. I've tried to read everything I can, and yet I haven't heard those answers. I haven't heard that kind of a thing.
I think that's a fair question. I think we probably could work to put together sort of the bones of an O&M plan, sort of what we would expect to be included in that. But I do just want to be clear that it would not be the final plan, and it would certainly change before operation.
I think everybody can understand that because you might not even build it precisely. What if the batteries all change between now? I don't think they will, but you know what I mean? Things change, and we understand that, but still, it would be helpful.
And codes change as well, and we need to ensure that we're in compliance with whatever the codes are at the time that it's built. Yeah.
And I'll just add one additional thing to this slide that Maggie has up on the EFSB process. This is not the only process, and I think Maggie did allude to this, right? There is we will have to come back to the town for the purposes of local ministerial construction permits. So that will be another process, again, as a double check against the codes and standards and or the conditions that will be levied against the project as a part of either the EFSB process and permit or as a part of the HCA that we've discussed tonight as well. So I just want to reiterate that this is obviously right in front of us, and it's going to be a very detailed and thorough process, but there will also be a local construction permitting, ministerial permitting process that will happen certainly before we break ground on the property.
Thank you. So I think some of the frustration may be around also, I mean, this isn't the only site that you've had, right? So I would think that if anything, you would be able to maybe not provide the information for this particular site, but what has been done in the past or what you have implemented for the other sites. So it would show that there is some type of plan that you do have that, and it might, and always putting that disclaimer that, hey, this isn't for your site. However, this is what we've done in other sites. And I think that's one of the things that we're not hearing is kind of just the broad answers. So that creates a little bit, and coming from a place like that can create a little bit of distrust, right? So it's more of that clarity information that we're looking for. So I do have a bunch of questions as well. So you had mentioned, where are the batteries exactly made? Where are they manufactured?
I don't know that we can tell you today exactly the location where these will be manufactured because, again, we're several years out from them being constructed.
Are they in the U.S.?
There are domestic manufacturing possible solutions as part of this. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the reason why I asked this is because you literally said that if they are made in the USA, if they are not made in the USA, they do not need to have that 9540A component.
So there's, a correction.
So that is concerning because if you don't know where they're located and they're not made in the US, then does that not pertain to this level of testing?
Yeah, the correction to that point would be anything that's installed in the U.S. has to have that UL certification.
Okay.
So to clarify, that is the case.
Thank you. And then you had mentioned about there being a potential of revisiting the site. How often do you think that would be or taking place as far as revisiting the site for the batteries and checking in? And that might not necessarily be maintenance, or that might be the maintenance part, but you had mentioned about revisiting the site, looking at all the...
Relative to the emergency response plan?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say an annual cadence is pretty normal, that we would, what I expect will be included in the HCA is an annual training requirement. That's our standard. And typically as part of that training component, you're also revisiting the plan to say any improvements we want to make, any suggestions to make this better or more robust going forward.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean it would change every year, but it means that there's an opportunity to make improvements.
Okay. And then I know you chose this site due to it being closest to the existing grid infrastructure. Therefore, you mentioned more feasible. However, there was another site that was pretty much the same, but it was a little bit further as far as, I think you mentioned it in your own documentation, that it wasn't chosen due to the fact that it would be costly. Why wasn't that, other than the cost, and yes, I get the cost. Other than the cost, why wouldn't that have been a consideration versus 500 feet from population, like a populated area?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there are so many factors that go into selecting a site, and what looks great on paper from the electrical grid has to overlap with what looks good on paper from a zoning and sort of geographic setting perspective, as well as impact to wetlands and other environmental considerations, as well as an individual who's willing to actually make a deal with you. So we sent out hundreds and hundreds of letters in the state of Massachusetts, reached out to many, many landowners, and we don't have the benefit of eminent domain. So we can't claim a site and say, this is the best site, therefore we shall build it here. We have to also find partners who are willing to sell the land to us and to work with us.
Okay, thank you. And then another thing with batteries, there's been a lot more studies on EMFs. So I know you had mentioned about the noise, and that was within, the testing and stuff. But with EMFs, there's been a lot of new things and new studies about EMFs and how that can really affect health, wellness, cancer, brain, all that. What are some of the, or have you, what are some of the things that you're doing to remediate that? And because that can pass through the wall barriers no matter what. And even though it's next to, it could be next to a school or a hospital, that's constant. We're constantly with it all over. And so it's in abundance. So anything that is typically anything that is in a large amount of, when it's over excessive, it can be, I can't even think of the word today. It can be actually, harmful. So what this would be 150 of those coming through surrounding that area and buzzing, and not just with the noise, but the EMFs and everything. So what are some of this, have you done any studies on that or anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I thought actually maybe it was part of the packet already, but if it's not, it should have been on that documents to be added list. Okay. There is an EMF report as well.
Okay. And then I did look at the sound report, and there is a section that the MVS units were marked as confidential in table 6.2, I believe. Is there a reason for that it being confidential, and why wouldn't we have that sound?
That's a great question. I'm not the sound engineer, but I think that that's something that has already been flagged as it would likely be addressed as part of evidentiary hearings. So great question. I think more to come.
Okay. Because again, it's that whole transparency thing. And if something is confidential, it raises kind of some flags of why. So that would be it. And then have any of these values of the sound that you did been independently reviewed by any third-party engineer under NDA?
We did not conduct the sound study in-house, so it was done by a third-party engineer.
Okay. Let me see. Also, I think a lot of the questions were already asked, duplicated. Let me see.
While you're looking, I just want to say I haven't said this for every question, but great questions. I really appreciate, seriously, the level of concern that you guys are putting into this, the amount of research you've done.
Okay. And there was one more that I know that I had. And these are probably for after, during this. So some of these were more for now, like with the process going through and things like that. So it might not be something for current. I don't have, everything else was pretty much asked. Any other questions from the board or comments? No. All right. All right. So I appreciate you coming in and getting the whole ton of questions from us. I would love, the more information if you haven't. I know that you had given us that website, so that's very helpful. It's not the easiest to go through that, but.
If you're having trouble finding a specific report, please reach out to me. Okay. And I'd be happy to send it to you.
All right, great. I appreciate that. And then, so I think that's all we have currently, right?
I'm all set.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again, and apologies for not coming before this body sooner, but I appreciate the chance to be here tonight.
I think it's a lesson learned for all of us, even, in general, just it is, I think it's something that it's important throughout, especially since this is being, a state initiative, that the Board of Health do become involved prior to everything to ensure that we are all on the same page and that there isn't the confusion, and we kind of ask these questions, and so you have that information. So I think that's really beneficial. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Where's my stuff? Okay. All right, so now we're going to open, we're opening the floor to public comment, but before we do that, I just want to remind, we have to vote on that, but this is an opportunity to speak on any matter with the Board of Health jurisdiction. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record and direct your comments to the board through the chair. Please note that the board will not be responding to questions or comments during this portion of the meeting. However, your input is important. All comments are being recorded and documented. We are all taking notes, and everything shared tonight will be reviewed as we consider topics for future agendas or seek further information. Your perspective helps us identify issues we may not have considered, even questions that we may not have asked. So I would like to put a motion forward to open the public comment section of this meeting.
I motion to put forward the comment.
I second that motion.
Okay, motion has been put forward by Susan, seconded by George. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none, chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. All right, so now it is open to the floor, so you can go ahead and
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Kratman, 101 Merrimack Meadows Lane, Tewksbury. I understand a lot of people in this room are frustrated with not a lot of answers. The process of the way it is going through the state is that they kind of come up with the plan as it goes along. As the town, we have a responsibility to make sure the health and safety of the residents, and especially our firefighters, is our priority. We were sitting here listening to the fire chief mention a couple of things about, about his review and his expertise. He's doing the best he can. He's not hiding anything. He's not lying to anybody. He's not working for the developer. He's not working for anyone. His number one priority is the health and safety of his officers. And those are the people that will run into a building to save each and every one of us. My job in this town is to make sure that I'm watching their backs. So if this is to be built and the state grants it, we agree and disagree in a lot of things in this town. But the one thing that we never take for granted is the health and safety of the people that are taking care of us. So if this is to be granted and we have a review process that goes through, they're going to submit the plans. We're going to have and like I said, the police chief is learning as we all are. No one in this room was an expert on this prior to this happening. So we're learning, we're trying to get the best information. We're going to bring consultants in. We're going to get impartial people to give us the answers that we need and make sure if this goes in, it's the safest thing possible to make sure that nobody's life is put at risk, and especially our first responders. I don't want any police officer, any firefighter, anybody, ambulance driver going into the site and putting their life at risk. And we didn't do our due diligence to make sure every safety matter was put into place. So our job is to negotiate. So if this is granted, we want to be involved in the discussions. We want to bring in all the questions that you have and many, many more about our concerns, our safety. What if this happens? What if that happens? There's so many other things that weren't even closely mentioned tonight that we have concerns about. And we want to make sure that if somebody does have to go in and something does happen, we're hearing about the technology and all those, but we got to plan for the worst case scenarios. That's our job. We got to make sure that our firefighters and our police officers and the residents that live down there, their safety and security is our number one priority. So, we're going to keep that all into effect when we're doing this review. If it's granted, we're going to sit here. We're going to have many, many more meetings on this. It's going to be open. You'll have all the information. But it's difficult for us to have conversations when we don't even know. If it's done 2 years from now, the batteries may change. This may change. The technology may change. We don't know. And we're doing the best we can to keep up with it and bring in the experts that have that technology to be able to work with us. So I know everyone's very upset about it. You should be. but it's something that we're working to make sure that if it is put in, it's the safest one possible. I give the company credit for giving us the information of what they have and talking about the new technology and things like that. But it's our job to make sure to question everything and make sure that happens. And we're going to work with them. We're going to be impartial, but, negotiators with that. But we're going to make sure if it does go through, your health and safety is the #1 priority. So I just want to make that very, very clear. If we're not giving the answers, it's because we don't have them yet, but we're working toward them. So.
Thank you.
Name's Greg Mann, 6 Monroe Circle. One of the slides that you put up on the screen there was testing, and it said carbon monoxide and VOC was going to be tested for. One of the main gases that is vented off is hydrogen fluoride, which happens to be one of the more nastier gases. That is not up there. Is going to be tested for. There's also methane, hydrogen cyanide, formaldehyde, and sulfur dioxide that also is vented. I don't see that tested there. If you're going to do a correct test, you better be testing for the worst case scenario. The second thing, I happen to agree with the gentleman here. When I heard that it was an automated unit, that is unheard of. Even a warehouse has a watchman walking around, an empty warehouse. I was going to say you should have at least 2 people there, because if somebody goes to the bathroom and there's something going on and he can't get to wherever he's got to get to, you're going to have somebody else there. I would say at least 2 people to monitor the situation. That's just something that has to be done. He has to also be trained. He has to know what he's doing. I'd like to know whether is it an automated system where he has to hit a button first before it goes out and then it goes over, or is it just, oh, there's a fire and it starts? I know people. Some people, like firemen, they run to the fire. I know other people they just take off. Now you might get one who takes off. He hops in his car and he leaves. He says, "I don't care. I'm not going to get caught in this thing," and I have seen that happen. I also would like to know where these batteries are being made. I heard that they were going to be made in China. I have a real problem with China. They have very poor quality control. They put melamine in baby formula, and then they blamed each other, and they killed kids with it. They also killed our pets with it too, where they put into the dog food. My company, before I retired, my company worked with China. Every once in a while, they would just shut down a plant, and they'd be like, well, why are we shutting them down? Well, we don't know. And it's like, oh, we're doing something. The government came in and shut us down. China is really not someplace you want to work with, where something is this critical. One thing I want to ask, I know maybe they don't know, are you guys ISO certified? That's the International Organization of Standardizations. What they do is they come in and they audit you yearly as to your standard operating procedures to make sure that you are following them. Most companies in the United States do this. In the automotive industry, it's even more severe because I dealt with them.
Yes, sir.
They check their SOPs and everything and make sure that they follow them. They don't just go in there and they have a form and they check things off.
Sir, we're almost at time, so are you wrapping up?
I'll wrap up. I got one last thing.
That's fine. Thank you.
Is the ice and snow situation. I didn't even think of that. I mean, you're going to have plows going around in there, I'm assuming. And what if one of them backs into one of these boxes? Or a worst case scenario, box puts one right in the middle of 2 ones, so you're going to get 2 of them going up at the same time. You're going to have procedures for all this thing so that they don't do stupid things. I'm sorry, but people are very intelligent, but they're also very stupid and they make mistakes. And unfortunately, this is some kind of thing that you don't want people to make mistakes or have limited knowledge and make bad decisions because they don't have the information.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask that you write your name, that everybody make sure that they're writing their name down and everything.
Okay.
And then if you, and just for the record, if you want to submit a written portion of this to the Board of Health, you are absolutely more than welcome to. If that, for more information, like whatever more information or questions that you have, please feel free to do that. Because we would love to hear everyone, because I want to make sure that we stay as much as possible within the 2-minute time frame to give everybody an opportunity and to possibly go home at a decent time. Not that I'm looking to go home at a decent time, but for everybody to be able to have an opportunity to stay and listen and get the information. So if there's anything that you haven't been able to provide in those 2 minutes or so, please feel free to write it out and send it to the Board of Health, okay?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I want to let you know that I am an engineer, and when I left my company, I was senior research associate. So I do know a few things.
Thank you. And then just don't forget to sign and just state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, I don't see anywhere to sign right here.
Oh,
Okay,
He's
he's got it. All right, Susan Young, 1408 Whipple Road. So this is just it doesn't specifically pertain to any actions from the Board of Health, but what it does pertain to are the statements that were made by Mr. Curran and the fire chief about things just being in action and needing to move ahead because of because it's a state mandated project. And so currently in the House, the Massachusetts House, there is House Bill 4689, which is an act establishing buffer zones for battery storage facilities. And some of that language actually says that as required by this section, no battery storage facility is to be constructed or operated within 2,000 feet of a populated area or within 3,000 feet of an ecologically protected area. So with the construction of this particular battery storage facility that is not in compliance, this is something that is in process of going through, but it should be something that our town says we need to put a full stop on this and wait for some other protections to come into place so that we have a battery storage facility that is going to be in compliance with these upcoming laws that we will be seeing coming through. And it seems as though we're trying to find something that is being pushed through ahead of time or before something else can come in that is going to provide the protections that we need for our Great Swamp and for the people that live directly next to this lithium-ion battery storage facility. The other thing that it says in here is that this section further requires all potential battery storage facilities to submit fire mitigation and emergency plans to the Department of Fire Services and the local fire department prior to construction. Facilities that are utilizing lithium-ion or volatile battery chemistries are required to install fire suppression systems in accordance with regulations set by the Department of Fire Services. And I didn't hear that those are things that are going to be done. I just heard a lot of talk about things that plans will get made when we get closer, but you can certainly start having some plans that are in place that can be articulated to the public so that we would know what is going on. And that's, sorry.
Thank you.
Can't read and talk at the same time.
No worries.
But
Thank
that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sign the thing? Okay. Yes.
If the people that are waiting in line, if they could probably take the paper and
Yeah,
save some time,
that would be great.
because 2 minutes doesn't seem like a long time, but it's a long time.
Yes, other than for the person who's talking, but yes, absolutely. If you can just pass that along, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Dawn Sheehan. I live at 100B Star Ave. And while we have representatives from East Point today, I just want to ask, because there were some questions, which NFP 855 standards are we going by, the 2023 or the 2026? Because they made a point to say that they're going to be meeting the codes at the time it's built. They want to use the most current codes. So how can we get that answer on which codes we're talking about? That's a very big thing. Are we able to get that answer since we're all here together right now?
Are you willing to answer? Okay.
Yes, for this project on the anticipated timeline, we would be following version 2026 of NFPA 855.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I just want to address what we heard earlier from the fire chief and the town manager. I have to say you have greatly underestimated your residents here, and it is very upsetting, to be honest with you. We already had classes on the NFPA 855 and the UL 9540. There are limitations of the 9540. Mr. Curran referred to it as a large-scale fire test. No, it's not. That test can be stopped at any point if they've determined enough data. We need to make sure these things can function as an actual unit. And so the 2006 codes, they require large-scale fire testing, hazard mitigation analysis. How have we been able to even talk about getting a fire evacuation or a fire safety plan if we don't know whether these are actually stamped UL 9540A? We've never seen that testing or documentation. Why are you waiting so long to give us any documentation if you've already picked out what battery you have? Just give us the documentation so we can decide for ourselves if it's safe. We are very frustrated, and it's not a lack of knowledge. Honestly, I learned nothing tonight. You guys need your own chemical engineers. You can't just rely on, oh, this firefighter said that there wasn't any hydrogen fluoride. You know how a great way to find out there's no hydrogen fluoride? To not have the meters to test for it. That's the best way you can realize there's no hydrogen fluoride, but it's there. You're just not testing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Chesbrough, 398 Chandler Street. Thank you to the Board of Health for allowing residents to speak, for providing this information night. I want to be clear, my concern is not with the board. I greatly appreciate your efforts in transparency. Just to make a comment on the slideshow, there are more limited participants included. My name wasn't up there. There's two more. If you want the email, I can send it to you, but that was incorrect. Also, on the slideshow, they mentioned, Mr. Curran mentioned that the project and the dates, they showed a schedule up there, starting with, I think, March 4th it was. This is on the town website, and it states September 18th. The town manager, assistant town manager, I'm not going to go on to all of them, which you can see, but this is not when it was started. This is the date that it was started. There's also the town, I think the town lawyer was submitted and stated that on October 25th, he submitted his petition that 9/18 was the date of September. So September 18th is when all this started, was according to those petition and according to this. But up there tonight, the date was 3/4, and that's on the website. So it's very disappointing that the majority of other elected and paid officials have not shown support or transparency in this process. Residents have no real opportunity to hear from knowledgeable experts, even though there were promises of Q&A sessions. Tonight, we were told we could ask questions. While I appreciate tonight's updates from the fire chief and town manager, which are valuable, it'd be very helpful for me, and I'm sure other residents, to have future opportunities to hear from experts, specifically on the safety and hazards of these projects. I'm deeply disappointed that outside of the Board of Health, Tewksbury leadership has not shown the same level of transparency or dedication to protecting human lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Pellrine. I'm 262 Mitchell G. Drive. I've been a resident for Tewksbury for about 36 years. First of all, I want to say to the fire chief, I respect him. I think that if this thing was to be built, that he will try to get it to the highest standards possible along with the selectmen. With that being said, I've been a firefighter with the town of Reading. I just retired 2 years ago, for 35 years. I was on the state's hazmat team for 20 years. So I've gone to multiple calls throughout the state. Each district represents roughly 20 towns, some give or take, you know what I mean, depending on where it is. So Reading was more south towards Boston. Some of the calls I've been on the Danvers explosion back, I think it was in 2006. 90 homes were destroyed. If you walked in there in the middle of the night, it looked like dollhouses were just torn apart. The selectmen here can probably attest. In 2000, there was a rollover in Reading of 2006. I'm sorry, not 2006. In 2003, there was a 10,000-gallon LNG tanker that rolled through, flipped over, 128, 93, spilled it. It didn't spill the load; it was contained. But that was huge. I mean, that shut down 93 and 128. I don't know if you can remember that, but back many years ago, it shut down everything. Things happen. That's my point. My point is things happen. My last 2 years on the hazmat team, there was not, we trained like the SWAT team. We train 8 hours once a month. So every Tuesday of the month, we do our training. The last 2 years, I would say there wasn't one training that went by that didn't have something to do with lithium-ion batteries. Thermal runaway is a big thing. It's everywhere. New York City, in 2024, it was one of the leading causes of fire in New York City. It was the leading cause of fires in New York City. It had 6 deaths associated with lithium-ion batteries. So car fires, you have to understand thermal runaway and car fires. You have to have an understanding of all of it. So a typical car fire, a fire truck carries about 750 gallons of water. I could probably put out 2, maybe 3 car fires with that truck. And back in Reading, we had a Tesla fire up on the highway. We used over 10,000 gallons. We used 4 communities to put out that car fire. And that's why they're saying, let it burn, because you can't put it out. So there's a lot of hazards to this. My thing to the whole town of Tewksbury is, when I was a firefighter, I was studying to be a hazmat tech, right? You know what I used to do? I used to sit by the railroad tracks over here, watch the trains go by. I'd have to look at the UN numbers, look up the chemical. You go to your ERG book, Emergency Response Guide, and you'd look up the chemical, what it's carrying. What's going through this town at night is ungodly. It's ungodly. Like East Palestine, that's going to happen. It could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it could happen anywhere. And that's my point. We lost 2 firefighters to an LNG gas explosion up here, right? So you have the train over here running through it, all hazardous materials. We've got a hazardous material up here that's stored. And for everybody that doesn't know, a gallon of LNG, right? It's liquefied, so it's kept. It's called a cryogenic, so it's stored as a liquid. As that thing off gases, for every gallon, it's 600 gallons of vapor. So it's large quantities. That thing, I wouldn't live next to it. I wouldn't, if I had an electric car, I wouldn't park it in my garage, I can tell you that. Firefighters, what are they doing? They give us blankets. So these blankets, you throw it over a car fire, it's supposed to absorb like 2,000 to 3,000 degrees of heat. It's buying your time, that's all it's doing. You can't put them out. So when the hazmat teams, these teams came out from New York, they trained me, they trained us. I could take 3 C-cell batteries. I could put them in a cage right now, like I have a hot trap for an animal. If you put a heat source next to those 3 lithium-ion batteries, you will cause it to go into thermal runaway. That trap will go through the ceiling. I've seen it done. I witnessed it with my own eyes. So there's dangers to it all. It's how much danger are you willing to put up with? I don't think the town should have a battery site next to a rail yard, next to a senior center, and that's just my opinion, being a hazmat tech for 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Fowler. I've been in this town for 60 years. Makes me old. I want to thank Mr. Pellerine because I read what he was going to say. He stopped me for, I don't have to talk for 10 minutes. I know I can't anyways.
You can always submit it.
That's it.
Please do.
I want to say this. What Steven said was spot on. Spot on. The dangers from this are unbelievable because we don't know everything about it. Think how many times they've changed the laws, the rules, just in 3 years. But I'm going to ask, I erased everything and I put this down. But the limited time afforded me 2 minutes, and I'm not criticizing you, I know it's late. I have one question and one statement. I want to thank the chairman of the Board of Health, but my questions are through her to the fire department. I don't know if they're still here.
Yes.
Chief, I have one question. Do you know at this time what the water flow at that site is?
No, this is one of the things I talked to East Point about.
Can't hear you.
No, because this is one of the things I talked to East Point about, and they've contacted DPW to get those numbers. So that's information that we are gathering, that we are aware of. We understand that we have to make sure there's sufficient water flow down that, where the site is.
Well, I'm not sure I got everything you said, Chief.
So I'll reiterate, he mentioned, so you asked about the water flow, and the chief said no. That is what they are looking at. They have asked East Point to look into that to get that information. Is that correct? Yep. So
Yeah.
that is information that they have requested.
Well, I'll tell you what I was told. I went to the Board of, went to the DPW 3 weeks ago and got good information, and then all of a sudden the information stopped. What does that tell you? Someone had to tell them I'm asking too many questions. The question to them was, I'd just like to find out the hydrants in the vicinity of this property. And I gave a plan of the area and where the hydrants were, the house numbers or street numbers or building numbers. And they then said, well, we'll have to research this. And then they said, I found out that CGM, Camp Gresser and McGee, who are very good engineers, were making a plan, and they would have it ready Thursday. Well, it didn't come in. Friday it came in, I wasn't around. I apologize. I went back, and the fellow that I was talking to wasn't available for 2 weeks when I went by, because I have other things to do too. So when I finally went back, I was told by one of the staff, said, well, you know, this has got nothing to do with the town. I said, whose water is it? Whose hydrants are they? You have to have that information. Well, eventually, I was given what I asked for. It was sitting right there on the counter. I didn't know that. I guess she didn't know it either. But one other person in there said, we have it, and this is addressed to you, and you can have it. So I have all that information. But the only thing it didn't do was it didn't say hydrant water flow from hydrants, at each hydrant. It just showed the size of the mains up and down the streets and the dead ends. The problem with the water there is, and my question to the chief was going to be, what is the amount of water you're going to get out of a dead end hydrant? Yeah.
Not clear. Until I get the information from the water department, I'm not going to answer a question.
I asked them. Fine.
So I would love to do a back and forth. However, we're not going to be able to.
I understand that.
And I'm trying to be as lenient as possible, but I also don't want to make it to consistent. I am writing down your questions. so that you are where I am writing down your questions. So if
Thank
I
you.
can provide, if I can get that information.
Just to let you know too, as the chief knows full well, I spent 34 years on the fire department. So I have all the respect in the world for Chief Kearns.
Thank you.
My comment is, my main concern, as is the chief's, public safety for residents and for the fire staff. Furthermore, as was spelled out earlier, the emergency response guidebook specifies a minimum evacuation distance of 1/3 of a mile. We hear all feet and meters and everything, but this is what it says, 1/3 of a mile for a lithium-ion battery storage fire. The closest residence to this site is 43 feet. 560 feet for 300 other units. And you all know what units I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. And please submit those to the Board of Health.
My name is Miriam Buzak, 40 Emerald Court, Tewksbury. I've done quite a bit of research since March, since I first heard about all of this. A lot of you might have heard that the Braintree Acting Fire Chief, Fred Viola, could not and would not support the best location proposed in his town, as the common street corridor was too densely populated in a residential area that already has congestion. It brings us to this site at Hillman Street, Tewksbury, with only one access road that we've all heard about leading in and out to a heavily trafficked Route 38. We all know during peak times and on weekends, 38 is even worse. It can take you a half an hour to get from one end to the other. The area is insufficient for a quick and organized evacuation, for ensuring timely fire apparatus response. We also would need many ambulances, as we've heard, to get our assisted living residents out in a timely fashion. This is going to be a disaster. I feel bad for the firefighters and the police department. They're already spread thin, and there's no way they can succeed if something to this nature should happen. The Hillman Street proposed site is a little less than 50 feet from the nearest residential home and 500 to 600 feet from many other homes, not to mention assisted living facility and a very large daycare facility that's almost completed that they're building now, children ages 1 through 6. Additionally, the current water supply is not sufficient, in my opinion, to handle such an operation, and I am concerned about runoff contamination. The best facility would be better suited in an industrial location where the risks associated can be mitigated and more efficiently and effectively handled. I respectfully ask the Board of Health and our town's fire chief to take a hard stand on this very important, dangerous, and hazardous plan to put the safety of the Tewksbury residents and our first responders first, and find another location which is better suited for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Howard Teisch, 29 Emerald Court. I am a retired actuary. Actuaries are trained to evaluate financial risks. This board is concerned with health risks to the community. Similar methods would be used in both cases. You look at past experience, incidents, and relate that to what you expect in the future. It is expected that there will be fires at best installations. We just don't know which ones or when. I mean, the chief referred to one just last month in Arizona. As long as I mentioned the chief, he mentioned about smoke going straight up. Earlier this year, back in January, I happened to be in Los Angeles, and I saw what strong winds could do to smoke and fire. So while I don't have all the information necessary to fully address the risks, as neither of you at this point, but having a best installation in a populated area clearly is too big a health risk for this community. And one other thing I might mention, people say, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And I think this is true with this installation. You think back to the Fukushima plant. You think of the Boeing 737X. Everybody thought this was fine, but then look what happened.
Thank you.
My name is Alan Capone. I live at 52 Emerald Court. But before I start, this is a scary fact. This podium has a rechargeable battery at the bottom. Hello? We heard a lot tonight, and I'm not going to go over everything that everybody had, but I'm going to give you a lengthy letter in the next couple of days of all the questions I really want to ask. I have two right now. In the petition, and I also heard, well, I should say this way, where is the 21E, Mr. Curran, that you mentioned at the board's last meeting? Why haven't I seen it? Why hasn't the town people seen it? When was it performed? Why isn't it filed with the DEP? You're in violation, plain violation. You have not called or notified the DEP. Am I right or am I wrong? Show me the number.
Sure, you may if you.
I asked the petitioner if there was 21E on the site.
Do you mind just so that it's on record and everybody can hear?
I asked the petitioner if there was a 21E on the site. Let me finish, please. And the petitioner responded that they thought that there was. If there was a 21E report on that site, there'd be a copy of it in my office and in the Board of Health's office. There is not any copy of any 21E material in my office or the Board of Health office. So to my knowledge right now, there is no 21E on that site. There probably should be, but right now there is not. But part of this process will be the town requiring them to mitigate any contamination on that site.
I understand, but why did you mention it at the last board select meeting?
Because it's my job to make sure that that site... Can I finish? Can I finish?
So I'm not going to have this back and forth, just because I don't want it to get escalated. And the he said, she said, or he said, he said kind of thing.
You're right. I understand, and I'll stop right there with that.
And I just, part of this was to not have the back and forth, and so, and you know, that is part of, you know, one of, I want to have clarity and transparency, so I'm allowing it, but I don't want it to be going the back and forth. If you want to make a short, brief comment, that is totally fine.
I just want to finish answering that question, which is my job to protect the safety of the town. And it's very natural that I would ask that question, is there a 21E on that site? Because that site, in my opinion, is probably contaminated already. It needs to be mitigated. And that's something that we will pursue this opportunity through this process to see that that is done.
Thank you.
Well, with that all said and done, that's number one. The other question I have to both the town manager and the fire chief is the NFPA 855. Are you working with the 2026 information that was just released?
So,
yes.
Because it's a lot more stringent than the old one.
yes, and East Point did answer that when it was asked before, that they would be working with the 2026.
And I have a lot of other questions. Like I said, I will put them in my form, text form to you.
Please do.
One last question to Hillman, I want to know. Are you going to give us a $500 million bond on this project? Why am I asking that? I want a liability bond for catastrophe, harm to our property. I mean, I live only 560 feet from this, where you're going to put this. I'm talking about hazardous waste from your property, what you're going to do to the town aquifer. I want to know, what are you proposing to give us for a bond? That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandra Poole. I live at 64 Emerald Court. I have a copy of all the changes of the 2026 rules for the National Fire Protection Association. And I was glad to see that in your slide for Hillman that you incorporated a hazardous mitigation analysis, because that was something that was optional and now it's required. I also noted that one of the gentlemen mentioned the gases, and he said that hydrogen fluoride was not listed. And if you listed certain gases, you must know what kind of electrolyte is going to be used in this type of facility. And I'm wondering, is it an aqueous water-based electrolyte, or is it a flammable liquid organic one? Because your slide also showed that you had some kind of information in testing for organic volatility. So I'm wondering if you already know what type of electrolytes in batteries are going to be used. Is that confidential information that we haven't been given?
She had to answer it off.
If you would like to answer, you are more than welcome, but you are not required to.
Yeah, I'll just say that the details of the battery chemistry and the burn test, as we showed on our slide, will be published publicly to the EFSB docket, and it will also be discussed in depth at the evidentiary.
Okay, and also for the town manager, I noticed that one of the comments that he made was that a consultant would be used. According to the new laws, it's required now that the risk assessment must be conducted by a registered professional engineer for fire protection, and also that the energy storage systems experience, they clarified the fact that general consultants or parties are no longer meeting that requirement. So are we going to have professional people evaluating?
Yes.
In doing this? Okay. Another thing that was mentioned about the gases, there are certain gas sensors such as an FTR, which is a Fourier transform infrared spectrometer. These particular sensors can analyze the composition during an event, especially in a thermal runaway. They also identify concentration of toxic gases. So it was mentioned that, you know, these gases are dispersed into the air, but there's no reading on them. Are we going to have this type of monitoring system if the facility is permitted for gases? If we have a thermal runaway event?
Yes. So I'm going to request that you submit all these questions that you do have so that we can then ask and then provide the responses if they are given. I think that's the best way than going back and forth and asking some of these questions. I think having it in writing, submitted it to the Board of Health. I will promise you that it will come to me, and I will work with Shannon to see if we can get these answers. And even if the answer is, I don't know, or was not provided, we'll figure out how to get them to the public, because it is all public.
And it's really important because the stricter, rules here are because there have been so many fires.
Yes.
And major ones in the last 3 years.
Yes, so I would request that all of you who have the questions, or even just talked or spoken today, or didn't get a chance to speak and want to write something up, please do so to the Board of Health so that we can have that all in documentation. It will be public record, just so you all know. It will be part of public record. But I think it would be great to have those questions we can then submit. And if, East Point is willing to answer, or if they're able to, or if it's the fire department or the town, we can get those answers, and then we'll figure out how we want to distribute that. That might be something in the future that we discuss, but I do want to make sure that your answers, if we can, in any way, shape, or form, get the answers, are answered and provided for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Martin. I live at 25 Emerald Court, and I am a limited participant in the state process, even though my name was not on the slide. All right, I want to talk about something that I think is a very strong health concern. It is about the noise pollution. I have read the sound level assessment report that was mentioned by the Hillman Project, and it is available on the docket right now. And I went through the document, and most of the document is talking about the measuring of the ambient sound, because the zoning laws limit us to not going over a 10 decibel increase. So it was quite interesting, because one of the locations measured appeared to be my house, measured at 1.5 meters, and I don't believe I gave permission for anybody to be on my property. So how that measurement came about, I'm not sure. But what is interesting is the fact that when they say what will be the noise level, and it had already been brought up here, it's on table 6.2 of that project, that the amount of decibels given out by the three sources is declared to be confidential. All right, so we don't know where we're starting from. Okay. Then, for only one page of the document is entitled Mitigation Measures. And I have questions about the three things that are listed there. The first thing is silenced equipment. And they say that the proposed battery containers offer silencing equipment. They do not say whether they're going to be buying that equipment, just that it's offered. The second mitigation measure is sound attenuation barriers. And they propose building walls on the east and south part of the site. The east site will have the 26-foot barrier, and the south side would have the 17-foot barrier. But I have been doing some research on barriers, and most of the research shows that the barrier is only as good as the lowest level. And first of all, two sides will not have the barrier, and one level is only 17 feet. So sound travels, okay, and even though it may not be coming directly from the south or the east side, it will come over. And also, definitely, research has shown that these barriers are significantly reduced in effectiveness over 500 feet. So we're talking, I'm living at 564 feet from the project, boom, that's when the barrier doesn't work anymore. Right? And the third measurement is low noise substation transformers. And this really pertains to the substation that will be built to transmit the electricity. But I was concerned about one of the last sentence there, where it says, the electric power plant environmental noise guideline, assuming the transformers will have a National Electric Manufacturers Association noise rating of 75 dBAs. What bothers me is the term assuming. Are they going to have this or not? They're just assuming? So I find that this whole report to be a little bit weak in its presentation, and I have a lot of I lack confidence in this. And we're talking about my long-term health here. Am I going to be having to listen to sounds that will affect my health as an elderly person? So I would hope that the Board of Health will spend some time looking into this evidence further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Schleicher from 74 Emerald Court. We have heard much important cognitive information this evening and asked many questions that need answers. I am asking one other really big umbrella question. I am asking this: why? Why would any caring person, why would any citizen or town official who cares about people, young or old, who cares about lives and safety, allow the building of any lithium-ion facility near people? You know what? I don't know why, but what we need here in this town is a full stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Rapucci, 258 Mitchell G. Drive. I got this photo here that you guys supplied. I believe that my garage is right next to this place, and it's not on the picture. How come you guys took it off? You guys want to see it? My garage is right here, and it's not in the picture. It moves. You guys can show it?
Paper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Melissa. Madam Chairman, members of the Board of Health, and thank you, Mr. Town Manager and Mr. Fire Chief Kearns, for being here tonight. I am also a longtime resident of Tewksbury. I grew up here, raised my children, and we're retiring here. I feel like I've always cared, I know I do, about Tewksbury, and I am invested in this community's well-being. I rise because I believe there is no balance between supporting this project for economic development and that of public health and safety. There is no doubt the risks outweigh the benefit. Excuse me. I did acknowledge the town manager and the fire chief because I've been writing letters continuously trying to compose myself to our selectmen, the town manager, and town departments. And I just want to say through the board to the town manager that when I wrote my final correspondence and I said I was sorry, it was not stated as an apology. It means I'm sorry that it happened. I've been writing letters, like I said, so that's what I mean by that. And now a different subject. I've been seeing some letters supporting the projects that the EFSB gets, and they cite records of safety for these best projects. I believe I'm correct when I'd like to point out that many of these comparisons are projects that are not built yet in Massachusetts. The ones in Massachusetts are significantly smaller, typically a few megawatts, whereas this is a big project, 125, much larger scale. And so there isn't, I don't believe there is a one-to-one comparison. It's on paper. I'm a citizen of this Commonwealth too, and I support clean energy. and I resent the town of Tewksbury being held hostage to a BEST project requesting exemptions, which will allow this development to be held to, not be held to the standard of our zoning and environmental regulations and protection for Tewksbury and the state of Massachusetts. I'm grateful to the Board of Health for their intervenor status, and I would like to continue to ask for your intervention, and as you invited us to communicate with you. The process is designed to facilitate progression, but it doesn't mean our town officials and departments can't speak out with concerns or against the project. No amount of money or host agreement is worth compromising our town's well-being. I understand initiatives for funding and training. We don't need them if we don't get this project. And I'm sorry, I'm almost done.
Okay.
Excuse me. As you've seen from my letters, I'm deeply concerned about the risks associated with this project, especially given our town's history with contamination. The recent EPA findings of contamination of our groundwater continuing are a stark reminder that we cannot afford to be complacent. The amount of water needed to cool a thermal runoff fire at this project poses a significant risk to groundwater contamination. God forbid there was ever an accident. Speaking in my former capacity as a Conservation Commission member, present during the time of enforcement closing of the landfill, participating in the push for the status of the Superfund site. I say that because regarding this, we are large part responsible.
Thank you.
I have 3 more sentences, please.
Okay, 3 more sentences.
It's real quick. Excuse me. I say that because we are large part responsible. We have a responsibility. We made a promise to never put Tewksbury in harm's way again. I'm compelled to remind every town official and remind everyone that our town's history with contamination is a solemn reminder of the importance of prioritizing caution. My position remains clear. This project is not a good fit for Tewksbury. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's John Lombardo, and I live at 17 Buckingham Road in Tewksbury. I am an elected official in town, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the board I serve on or any committee, but just a concerned resident. Now, I did speak at the hearing, and some of my main concerns, one was the emergency response plan. I just want to ask, why don't we get it done right now? Why are we waiting for this down the line? If we care about public safety, shouldn't we just look into it and see what it will look like? John, Fire Chief?
Process right now,
Okay.
but it can't be finalized, as I said earlier, until we're done. So it's going to be a working process
Okay.
up to construction, and you start construction, up to when it opens.
Can we get it done prior to permitting?
So the framework is there, of what we're going to look at, but I can't tell you how it's going to play out completely until the facility's built and we know what's exactly.
Okay. And John, can we get it done before permitting? I think that would be good for them. Yeah.
That issue is like the chief said, you can't finalize it until, everything comes together. In fact, just by the very nature of these plans, they are reviewed every year because things change. We will put in the HCA certain parameters that we want in the emergency response plan, understanding that it won't be fully developed. So,
But I think my major concern in this is that senior facility. So that kind of changes the dynamics of it. So I think having one done prior to permitting, if you guys want to look into it, that'll be great to have.
well, we will put in things in there about Bayberry and parameters, but the actual specifics won't be finalized till the end.
To the end of what, though? So how long, will it be done after permitting? I think you had your hand raised.
I just want to clarify that,
Yeah.
as we had on the slides, the draft emergency response plan will be published as part of the EFSB docket. I would expect that in the coming weeks.
Weeks? Okay, that's good to know.
So it won't be finalized, but a draft, the sort of snapshot of where we are today, will be made public.
Okay. And is it looking like we have the resources to do a medical and residential evacuation right now? Since it'll be done in a couple of weeks?
I would be respectful of not going into a back and forth. I think that's a really excellent topic that we can
Yeah.
come back to.
Okay. Another thing is that history has shown us in this town or anywhere, anytime there's chemicals involved, it's hard for residents to get their benefits. We can look at 9/11, first responders still fighting for their benefits for chemicals. Veterans from my war, the Iraq War, still fighting for their burn pit benefits. So can we make sure that these residents have a guaranteed home and health protections in place prior to permitting? And we will know where the responsibility lays when that time comes, if they go to claim their benefits, if something went wrong?
So
Yeah.
you are not obligated, because we're not doing the back and forth. So what I would recommend and suggest
Okay.
is to submit those questions again to the Board of Health. We can then see if we can get any responses and figure out a way to get those back to everyone. And I know that it's been said a couple of times that everything is kind of in process, and I know that can be very, very frustrating. I can say for myself, it is frustrating to hear because I like things now. And that's just me, and I know that that's not always how it works, but I do appreciate these questions, and I think those are really good things to have so that even, right now, the Board of Health is working on petitioning to intervene at a later term. So hopefully nothing will go against us being able to intervene at a later time. And so these are some of the things that we can provide and have those answers or questions as well, or at least, work with the town to get those in.
Okay.
So
And then last thing, probably is going to be around any emergency funds. I would just request that the town corporation on them create one, which is specific for the residents and the families if they were displaced. I'll even go a step further. Any money generated from this facility for our town goes directly into that budget as well. Thank you.
thank you.
Good evening. Rick Keene, I live at 148 Pike Street in Tewksbury. I just had a few quick things to add. I've been taking notes throughout here, so bear with me. The first thing is you addressed the UL 9540A test method, and that was developed in 2017. And you addressed it with the Hillman company that those tests, you deliver them? You get those tests from a third party, correct? Is there a pass-fail?
I don't think that that's really the way that the test is designed.
There's no pass-fail, right? You don't pass the test or fail it, correct?
I don't think so.
No.
No, there's not. Okay. For the chief, are you familiar with the TS 800 LSFT standards? Okay, that's something that I just looked up, and they say that you should use that with the UL 9540A test method. That's something I think you should look into. You should use it coinciding with those test standards. And the last thing I wanted to bring up, the Moss Fire. Excuse me, I got a bad cold. Everybody knows about the Moss Fire that happened in 2025, right? There was also a fire there in 2021. There was also a fire there in 2022. If they can't get it correct by 2025, how do we expect you to get it correct now? Can we expect you to get better standards, or nothing's changed?
We can.
Yeah.
We're happy to respond to that. Just a.
Sure, if you want it to the mic, I will give you that. If
Sure.
you're willing to, sure.
Good question. I think Chief Kern spoke to this a little bit earlier. The Moss Landing fire, the Moss Landing system in general, kind of an apples to oranges comparison relative to what we're trying to build today, which is outside containerized solutions. The Moss Landing, one, it used a different chemistry of type of battery. Two, it was in a refurbished warehouse that was previously a natural gas power facility. And then on top of that, it wasn't properly segmented like a lot of facilities that are getting designed today. And the codes really didn't exist when that facility was designed. Specifically, the Moss Landing facility that experienced the thermal runaway event
So they didn't
earlier this
exist
year.
in 2021, you're saying, as they are now today?
I think Moss Landing, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure Moss Landing was built prior to 2020 or 2021, certainly before the codes were established with NFPA 55.
But the fire happened in 2021, then again in 2022, and now again in 2025. You would think that you would have fixed the problems or gotten better solutions to not cause those fires.
That's correct, but they were still built utilizing
old standards,
no codes, no standards.
Okay.
Things that we're designing to moving forward, and as we spoke about earlier, we'll be using the version 2026 of the most recent 855.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Gerard Corbin from 82 Emerald Court. First thing I want to do is correct the town manager's presentation. There's actually 7 people having limited privileges under the standing board. Linda mentioned that she was one of them. I'm one of them. One of them happens to be the rep Robinson, and one of them is National Grid. Why I bring that out is I've been frustrated for a long time that the management of the town of Tewksbury has just rolled over and accepted this best thing. To me, that little slight in the slide where not only did they forget to mention the other 6 people, but where they had me listed as Greg. There is no Greg Corbin in Tewksbury. To me, that's indicative of the level of commitment that they have to this project. They're just plastering things up, they're not double checking things, and they're not fighting for us. In fact, I believe they said tonight that they did not want this to be confrontational and that they were hoping to get a lot of things out of the host community agreement. We should be fighting like hell to stop this. We should not be waiting to the host agreement to say, okay, we're going to get that new traffic light at Archstone in Maine that you mentioned when this committee was here in October. So I'm very frustrated. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. The second thing is from the Hillman perspective, what we're hearing is plans about plans. There is no reason why a lot of these plans can't be very fleshed out. It doesn't matter what technology is actually in the battery plan. If you know you have to have a plan to evacuate Bayberry, Emerald Court, Archstone, the new daycare facility. You know how many people those are. You know what you got to start doing. Yeah, there may be some I's that need to be dotted and T's to be crossed at the last minute, but 90% of that you know now. You don't have to wait until the plant's built. Thirdly, thank you for all you've done. The Board of Health has done a great job.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Durant, and I've been a resident of Tewksbury for over 33 years now. I had 33 and a half years on the Somerville Fire Department. Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse here. And I don't know that much about lithium batteries. I know that we had a few fires in cars with them. I know that they've developed a blanket that you put over. And I know they scratched that idea because they had, during testing, they had an explosion that injured 3 firefighters. Now they're making containment units. Junkyards are building these containment units to put the cars in and fill with water to drown the car. Fire chief tells us that we're not going to be fighting this with water, but yet we're asking how much water is down there. Well, if we're not going to be fighting with water, who cares how much water is down there? I just feel like we're putting a bomb in that area. and nobody's doing anything about it. Everybody's saying we're planning for when it comes, when they approve it. Okay, well, let's not plan for them to approve it. Let's stop it now. Let's tell them this is not the place for this thing. You want to put it someplace? Put it in the middle of 495, in the median strip. Who cares? Don't put it in our town. Why can't they put it in the middle of 495? Because it's too much to dig from 495 to the power grid. Well, spend the money. If you want to make money, spend the money. Don't tell me that it has to go here in Tewksbury. It doesn't have to go here. I can't buy a piece of land in Tewksbury where turtles are nesting and build homes. But you're going to put it in the middle of the Great Swamp. That's ridiculous.
Thank you. So for everyone that did speak, please make sure that you do sign that paper, that form with your name and your address, please. And again, I will reiterate it. Please send your statements, comments, questions to the Board of Health email that you can find online, or you can even submit it in person to is it Lisa, right? Like, you can submit it directly to Lisa, who is the admin for the Department of Health. She will be able to then make sure that we get it as well. So I know I appreciate everybody coming. We're gonna. I'm going to put in a motion. I would like to submit a motion to end the public comment portion of tonight.
I make the motion that we end the public comment part of the evening.
I second.
Okay, so motion has been put forward by George, seconded by Chris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Motion goes through. So we have here old business best update, but I think we've had a lot of that.
Correct.
The only thing that is new is, again, what I had mentioned before is I would just ask everybody, I know everybody is leaving, but I would ask that on the way out that you keep your your comments and things out of the room when you go outside, not while you're in here, so that everyone can still hear. So I do appreciate that. We are almost done. So next on the agenda is the best, it's old business best update, but we had a lot of the update already, but I just wanted to make everyone aware that Shannon and I have been working with putting in and submitting the petition to intervene with the EFSB. I know that it is late intervention, but we are asking, requesting that. So we have been working diligently to get as much information and ensure that we are able to do that legalistically. There's a lot of ins and outs of that process. Everyone, I would appreciate that you keep your conversation outside, or if you're going to remain inside, that you stay quiet.
Yep.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, one comment.
We have ended that portion, so I do have to stick with that.
Yep.
If you would like, you can absolutely send something in writing, write it down, whatever it is. I just cannot allow it right now because we voted on shutting that portion, okay? I apologize, but that's how it, I got to go by the things, so, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, again, we are working on that. Hopefully, we will get the last bit of information and kind of go through. It hasn't been an easy task. We do not have legal counsel, like we don't have a legal attorney with us, so we would be representing ourselves. Shannon would be part of that, so just so that you are all aware, I want to be transparent. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but I'm going to. because I do want to be transparent. And so, and now having East Point here, knowing that we are doing that, and we are, you know, it's more of to gather the information, being able to be a voice with questions, concerns, and things like that. So I hope that you allow the late, I don't know how the whole process works, but if there's anything on your end that you can do to move that forward as well, once we put in that petition, we'd greatly appreciate that, to be able to work together with this whole situation. Again, I know that there is a lot of stuff going on. I know that this is a state thing, whether we like it or not. And I want to reiterate that the board, we all may have our personal opinions. However, as a board, we do want to and need to stay neutral on this, and we need to ensure that we maintain that neutrality, and that we do this in the best interest of everyone. And so our best interest is always the safety and health of every single resident. I do not take anything that any of you have said I don't take anything that you are saying lightly or not lightly. I really am listening to every single one of you. I think many of you probably have researched this more than I have. Because you've had more time. And in all honesty, I wish we had had the time, and this is, you know, this is not my full-time job. If it was, I don't know, but it is not my full-time job. So we are doing the best that we can on our end. We are working with Shannon on this as well. So we do hope to be interveners and be able to kind of put in that information and see what's going on, and kind of ensure that if this does come to Tewksbury, if this is something that does follow through, that we are making it the safest possible that we can make it, and ensuring that everything is set so that, because I know that I want to be able to sleep with my head on my pillow very well, and ensure that I did everything that I possibly could to ensure the safety of every single person.
Right, right.
So, with that, next will be the Health Department report.
Okay, I'm sure everyone was waiting for this one. We're doing food permit renewals right now, and currently we're still waiting on 38 establishments to get their applications in before December 1st, end of day, and if they don't, their fee will be doubled.
Okay.
Staff update, our regional inspector, Elise, she took a full-time job with the Chelmsford Health Department, so she has left the regional position. We do have a job description out. We are hiring.
Okay.
And then for our coat drive, that's going till December 15th. We have received 85 coats so far.
That's great. 85, great.
85, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's all.
Now, if members or if people, is it just distributing to Tewksbury, or is it for any family? And what would they need to do? Do they just call?
They just come drop their coat off. We have a box outside the nurse's office downstairs in the lower level.
Okay. Sorry for the commotion. So if you guys on the way out, if you could just keep it quiet until you're completely down the hall, that would be grateful. I would be very grateful for that, so that we can actually hear each other a little bit. Thank you.
Inside voice, inside voice.
So one question on that. So if people are needing coats, how do they come about requesting it or obtaining a coat?
So we drop them off at Anton's Cleaners, they clean them, and then they're responsible for the distribution.
Okay, so they distribute. Perfect, thank you. Okay, anything else? Great. Next would be board member reports, anything? I have none.
I don't.
Okay, so next would be, I would would like to hear a motion, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second that.
So motion has been put forward by Chris, seconded by Pam. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Chair votes aye. Motion has passed, and it is 9:24. Good night, Tewksbury. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next time.
Thank you.